today, President Trump expected to hold a cabinet meeting after a visit from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House yesterday.
Madeline Rivera is live in Washington with all the details. Hi, Maddie.
Good morning, Carly and Todd. This is the president's sixth cabinet meeting, and it comes as President Trump tries to pressure Israel and Hamas to reach a ceasefire agreement. Negotiators from Israel and Hamas have been holding talks in Qatar, trying to reach a deal that includes a 60-day ceasefire and the release of 10 living hostages and 18 bodies. But ending the war in Gaza remains a major sticking point. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is adamant that Hamas cannot continue to govern Gaza. Still, Netanyahu is praising the president, and last night he sent a letter. He says he sent a letter to the Nobel Prize Committee to nominate President Trump for the Peace Award.
He's forging peace as we speak in one country and one region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well-deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will be heading to Doha this week to continue ceasefire discussions. It is not the only high-stakes conversation that Witkoff is set to undertake in the coming days. He also says they may hold talks with Iran soon.
We have scheduled Iran talks, and they want to talk. I think they've gained a lot of respect for us. I think they've gained a lot of respect for Israel also. But they would like to meet, and we're going to have a meeting. Steve, when is that meeting going to be? Do you want to say it?
Rather, very quickly, in the next week or so.
Netanyahu will meet with more U.S. officials today, including Vice President J.D. Vance and House Speaker Mike Johnson. He's slated to meet with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth tomorrow.
You crazy son of a you did.
Is that Elon Musk as Jeffrey Goldblum? It's good. It's great. It's good. Fantastic. All right. I needed the laugh today. We've done nothing but blow up our phones yesterday. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. I can't tell you who they are. I'll let you guess. Okay? I'll let you guess. Let's just say that we've talked with people who really understand how these systems work, and we're going to tell you about it today on the show. You're not going to like it. You're not going to like the answer. I don't like the answer. But we have a way out for the Trump administration, and we're going to talk about it here. Because these Epstein documents, it's not going to... A couple of things. It's doing the opposite. It's doing the opposite of what they thought that it would do. Okay? We're going to talk about who the they is, but this has been mismanaged. It's a crisis, and it needs to be handled correctly. There's a roadmap, a very simple roadmap, actually, and an executable roadmap to handle the Epstein case correctly. And I think to put it to bed, at least for the vast majority of people who are tuning in to talk about it, but it's not going away. This is going to be an issue for the next election cycle and the next election cycle and the next election cycle as they continue to lie to us. And we're being lied to right now. We're being lied to. And there's a way out. And I did nothing. I literally just left the studio and just drove around and made phone calls all day yesterday to individuals who are in charge of this kind of stuff. And I found out what's really happening, and we're going to talk about it today on the show. I'm going to share it live with you. I've only shared my thoughts in little pieces on our X account. We're going to go through all that. But I have news to break for you today on the program, which is exactly where the Epstein documents are. I know where they are. I know where they're being kept. I know. And I know the entry point in order to get them. So we did the work, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about it today. Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. President Trump is holding a cabinet meeting live on this program. We're going to hear from some of the people in this decision matrix for what happened with the Epstein Files. We're also going to hopefully be hearing from the CIA director, which is where many of those files reside. But that's something that we talked about yesterday. There's something new that we're going to cover today. But the CIA officer went viral yesterday on Jesse Waters' show saying that the CIA may have destroyed the evidence. And the CIA is known to do these kind of things. We're going to talk about it. Representative Byron Donald, who I know will be the next governor of the great state of Florida, will be live on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, Viva Fry, who is just one of our favorite attorneys to speak with on these issues, will be live on the program. He's joining us from his car at the beach. Very exciting. Tom Fitton will also join the program. Tom Fitton is a hero of the Republic. He's furious about what's happening right now with the Trump administration. He and his organization, Judicial Watch, has been suing for these documents. We're going to get all of the information, and we're going to break some news live today on the show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. What if you could delay your next couple of mortgage payments? That's right. Imagine putting those payments in your pocket and finally getting a little breathing room. It's possible when you call American Financing today. If you're feeling stretched by everyday expenses, groceries and bills piling up, you're not alone. Most Americans are putting these expenses on credit cards, and credit card debt is higher than it's ever been in this country. It's not good. Debt writ large is higher than it's ever been in this country. It is something that we have to obviously concern ourselves with. So make sure that you're taking care of your house, your national house, but also your literal physical household as a representation of who you are and how you wish to handle things. American Financing can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off your household debt and do it quickly. All you need to do is call American Financing today. Make sure that you can get those payments under control. Call today. Their customers are saving an average of $800 a month. It's like a $10,000 raise every single year. It's fast and simple. It could save your budget this summer. Call now before it's too late. 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219. AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. Okay. Let's go back in time. This is a clip that went viral yesterday. Now, I'm perfectly happy when people take clips from the show. Sometimes I'm getting, completely roasted. We do the show live, and I don't have a script. We have no script. We have like some assets that we want to play, some general topics that we want to talk about, but we just kind of like roll here. All right. So I'm perfectly happy when the show goes viral. Some people roast me. I get roasted day and night. It's fun. It's like you're on the internet. That's what happens. Okay. That's, you make when I find retards asks for the most retarded person on X, I raise my hand. Okay. I'm perfectly happy to be that guy. Okay. Went to community college after all. Still shocked every morning I get to wake up and do this. And I'm thankful for it. I'm grateful for you. Now, we have been grinding for a while, and a clip from 2023 popped up in my feed. Of course, these Blue Anon accounts, these soy libs lie about us. Blue Georgia. There's only a blue Georgia when the water pipes burst, right, at 3 a.m. when they're counting all those mail-in ballots. Definitely a blue state, that Georgia. No, it is not. Anyway, this counts as fraudulent as the elections in Georgia. They said that Kash Patel in 2025 said this on our show. First off, no, this was like a long time ago. You can tell by the studio setup and the cameras and everything. This was an old clip. It's actually from 2023. Kash Patel on our program though went viral for talking about the Epstein List and what he was going to do. What should happen to the people on that list? So let's watch the clip. I just want to establish here that we've been working on this for a long time, and like a bulldog with a bone, we are not going to let up now. Here we go.
Are you, like, in closing here, I want to just be very clear. Republicans could get Epstein's List out now? Like, how would that process work?
Simple. One subpoena to the FBI. Give me the list. Oh, you don't want to give me the list and you're going to break the law and commit contempt of Congress? We're going to take your money. We're going to take Chris Wray's private jet. Taxpayer-funded G5 rides across the country to his Appalachian State vacation home, down to Georgia, and all over the rest of the place. That guy doesn't need a G5 government-funded jet. And the second you take that money, you get Epstein's List.
Here's the problem, Kash, is that they shut down the Lolita Express. So how are these guys going to fly on a private jet anymore? It's really a quandary, my friend.
Oh, man. I love it.
The good old times. We were trying. We were doing our best with our crappy lighting and I got crummy cameras and our Christmas lights. We were trying. On our program, we've had Patrick Bet-David, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, back in the day, right? Pam Bondi. They've all appeared here. And a ton of other people inside of the matrices of decision-making that's happening right now in D.C. And I said, you know what? That dog don't hunt yesterday. We've been pretty clear about it. And we have to call balls and strikes. And sometimes you got to be aggressive with your friends. And sometimes you have to call out. I mean, what it means to be a friend is to call out the people when they're not, when your friends are wrong. You got, that's what a real friend does, right? Is put your shoulder in. And so we hit the bricks yesterday. And I just tore up my phone and just drove because I was angry because they've mismanaged this. This is not good for the Trump administration. The fallout from this is threefold with this whole Epstein, shut up, we looked into it. One, there is so much demonstrable evidence that what they're saying is untrue. And I don't want to call these people liars. And I think that there's a basic ignorance and an explanation actually to this. And I found the explanation yesterday after hunting for it. But prima facie, okay, what the memo says is untrue. That Epstein had no clients. That's absurdist. It's insane. It insults our intelligence. Why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison for thousands of counts of sex trafficking? Why is Prince Andrew paying 10 million pound sums to Virginia Roberts, photos with Virginia Roberts on the record? That's just one example. There are thousands of examples. Go through the Epstein documents released. Now that happened a year ago, last December. A year ago, so December 2024 was when there was a massive tranche of documents released. All of these girls talking about Bill Clinton on the Lolita Express and the islands. Jeffrey Epstein saying Bill Clinton liked him young. And there's so much there. To say that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked thousands of women to nobody insults our intelligence, and it atomizes whatever fragile thing that's going on right now inside of the Trump administration. That fragile thing is, let's rebuild trust. We're in charge of these systems. We didn't break them. The Trump administration did not break the FBI. They didn't break the DOJ. That was done for decades by very evil men and women. Remember, is Trump really going to win? No, we'll stop it. You remember that from the FBI? It's how evil are these people? The damage was done for decades, okay? But the Trump administration, the will to power, the responsibility of government means that you now own it. You didn't break it, but you own it, and so the nightmare is yours. And the nightmare is this. The American faith in our Justice Department and FBI hovers around 0%. Right around between the 1 and 0 percentile. And so to pull the whole, nothing happened here, don't believe your eyes, and trust us, bro, we looked into it. Move along. You don't understand what time it is. That style of disclosure to the American people died with your grandparents. Not since the 1960s have you been able to look Americans in the eye and be like, we looked into it. It's fine. You're good. You're good. Don't worry. The official story is real. Okay? Shh. Move along. You haven't been able to do that for a long time. But you definitely can't do that today. There is zero credibility. You didn't break it, but you bought it, and now it's yours. So stop insulting us. The release was also an insult the more I thought about it, this memo is real. And it was given to Axios. Why would you give it to Axios? Why would you give it to it was given to a reporter. A reporter who hates Trump and hates the administration. Go check her byline at Axios. Why would you do that? If you're going to come to this conclusion, then there's only one way to do it, okay? And I don't think you should have come to this conclusion. I'm going to straight up say it. And I'll explain why. I'll do what they have refused to do here, and I'll explain to you what's happening. Where all the evidence is. I know where it is. If you're going to come to this conclusion, you better call in Bret Baier. That'd be my suggestion. Call in Bret Baier. Sit down for an hour and say, we are going to talk only Epstein. And I'm going to give you everything that we can. I'm going to explain to you why we came to this conclusion. I'm going to be honest with the American people. Even better, do a press conference where you're standing there taking questions. You're explaining your findings, and you're putting out the documents, whatever. Whatever you do, you're like explaining it to people. Dropping it on a Sunday night at 9 p.m. All of us had to get out of bed to go record this at 10 p.m. because they dropped it at 9 p.m. I'm normally asleep. With a liberal reporter, it has all of the hallmarks of you just trying to sweep this under the rug. And so let me explain the fallout, and then let me explain what I know, and then how you fix it. Okay? Let's go. 1, 2, 3. The fallout is that it looks like you're covering up for a predator. The way you did this, there is no list. There was no blackmail. We literally know there's blackmail. As we talked about, there are many detailed stories on the record of Jeffrey Epstein blackmailing everyone from Bill Gates to Bill Clinton. There was no client list. What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean there's no client list? Ghislaine Maxwell actually had a little black book. I mean, this is what came up yesterday. ALX, please grab me this. This is what came up yesterday. Ghislaine Maxwell had a black book that they didn't have entered into the record that was all locked up. And we're going to get to this. The reason I'm talking about Ghislaine is this is very important. There we go. There it is. Thank you. MTG brought this up. Yeah. See that note, please, for our first guest. Here we go. What about the little black book? A 100-page book containing all the names, contact details of 2,000 people, world leaders, celebrities, and businessmen. Click on the article, please. Oh, yeah. Ghislaine Maxwell's little black book to remain secret in court deal. So many deals were struck here. And this is what we found out yesterday. But I want to just begin by saying all of those lies, we know that they're not true, okay? They're not true. They're not true. All right? There was a client list. They've written about it. You're entering George Orwell territory here. The do not believe the sights of your eyes and ears was the final command of the party. It's getting scary. It's weird. I don't like being lied to. Yes, there was a client list. Yes, there was blackmail. And yes, there are lots of questions about Jeffrey Epstein's murder / suicide / he's the first 100% exonerated innocent person to ever go so far out of his way to kill himself in a cell. I mean, just the behavior of innocent people, right? All of it insults our intelligence. Here's the fallout. The fallout is an atomization of trust with your core constituency, MAGA. The fallout is that it looks like you're protecting predators. And the fallout is that it looks like, once again, the federal government is in the business of covering up for pedophiles. Do you understand? You don't want to be on that side. The way that you don't cover it up is quite simple. You just don't do it. And the way through that is transparency. The only way out is through now. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about what they must do, and we're going to talk about where these files are, because I know. So let's begin. Ghislaine Maxwell holds the key to so much of this. Ghislaine Maxwell is alive. She's currently in prison. She's serving a 20-year sentence for trafficking children to nobody. Remember? Yeah. Let's pop that article back up. Thank you. Ghislaine Maxwell is currently appealing her sentence. Her sentence, of course, is sort of a proxy prosecution. What they were going to do to Epstein, they're now doing to Maxwell. They were going after Epstein first, and then they came for Maxwell. Here's what I found out yesterday. There is no further information at the FBI. The FBI doesn't really house trial evidence. The FBI doesn't prosecute people. The FBI refers for prosecution, but the Department of Justice are the prosecutors. They make the final decisions. There are times when the FBI brings cases and brings evidence, and the DOJ decides not to prosecute for whatever reason. It happens all the time. The FBI cannot put people in jail, meaning the FBI can arrest you, the FBI can charge you. The actual prosecution happens inside the DOJ. The FBI is an intelligence agency. You have to understand the difference between the two. DOJ is final justice, the prosecution of the case. This evidence and this information has been prosecuted. They've used it to go after Ghislaine Maxwell and put her in prison. This evidence doesn't reside at the FBI. The FBI looked for everything that they could possibly get, and there is a system at the FBI that is quite rigorous when it comes to entering in evidence. That's why you're able to actually get text messages like these. I'm not saying it's perfect, but here's a good example. Like, hold on. How do we even know that these messages? This is insane. Trump's not going to win, right? No, we'll stop it. Like, how are they able to get this? Well, the FBI has pretty litigious and a pretty obscene level of data entry and evidentiary entry, both physical and digital. And so we're able to like pull messages from FBI phones like that. The FBI does not house the Epstein evidence. It's not where it's kept. Epstein cases have been brought, and they put people in prison for them, namely Ghislaine Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell only. The vast majority of the Epstein evidence currently resides inside of a place called the Southern District of New York. So when we're asking about, let's say, here's a good example. Can you please add my screen, Klein? We're asking about, say, this. I asked yesterday. I was told yesterday on a phone call by a federal official, what do you want us to release? You know, there's bad images. You know, there's bad and nasty stuff there. I don't want it. I don't need it. Keep it. I don't need that. Nobody needs any abuse material on the internet. That's not what we're asking for. We don't want that. If it does include some third party that should be charged, then whatever. I don't need any of that on the internet. According to the FBI, that manila envelope right there, right in the image. This photo, by the way, from the government. That manila envelope contains a stack of passports with Jeffrey Epstein using pseudonyms, different names. That box right there, see this little this box? These are boxes of diamonds. Diamonds, really? Remember Hunter Biden got a diamond from the Chinese government for their shady deals? Where the hell are those exactly? You know, there's no predator material. There's no abuse material in that. Why don't you just send us photos of them? I told this to top federal officials yesterday. Why not just release that? Look at all, like, you can't tell me that all of this is predator material. Why not just, like, show people? Why not show people photos of the interior of his home, his paintings, his cars, his cookbooks? Why not start with that? The bloody and insulting idea that we're all, like, out here calling for the release of child abuse material is probably the most insulting thing about all of this, actually. That's what we're, like, ravenous for. Shut up! Makes me so angry. Because it's like attacking the base, and nothing will make my blood boil more. No, what we're saying is that our own FBI has this photo. Can you please get the evidence, the boxes of evidence? We've played it. We've shown it a million times. There's a bin of hard drives with yellow evidence tape wrapped around them, put there by Jeffrey Epstein. There they are. Okay, sure, there's probably some very naughty and very nasty photos on here. Jeffrey Epstein was a horrible person. But that's not all that's on there. How many terabytes of information are on all those hard drives? You're telling me that that's all that's on there? I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And that only Epstein appears in all of those, all of the nasty images? Of course there's probably nasty stuff on there. I don't want it. I don't need it. Okay? Maybe you could detail that for us. Maybe you could redact it, right? Like you put just like abuse tape number 3, abuse tape number 4. Maybe you can make a list. Okay, fine. But like, you can't release this stuff. You can't like do just the basics of like you trust us by releasing this. Let's show again the bag of diamonds and passports. You can't just release that. There's no abuse material there. Throw the American people a bone. Have faith in the American people, and they will return that faith. That's how you engage in a trust bond. Why can't they do it? You're not going to like this answer. You're not going to like it, but it's true. The FBI can't do it because the FBI doesn't own any of this. I know where it is, though. I know where it is. It hasn't been destroyed. That's not true. That's not true. It's currently in an evidentiary lockup in the Southern District of New York. The same Southern District of New York that had to have its head cut off. James Dennehy was fired, gave himself a little parade when he was kicked out. They said it was for questioning of agents for January 6 prosecutions. The Southern District of New York very famously considers itself totally independent fiefdom is what it's called inside the DOJ. I heard this many times yesterday as I was calling through lawyers at the DOJ, prosecutors, federal prosecutors, we know FBI agents, like so many people. I had 100 phone calls yesterday to get to the bottom of this. And here's what it was. The Southern District of New York is where all of the big time lawyers that want to get like their names carved on the side of buildings at law firms, they all go to the Southern District of New York. It is a tight ship. It has major prosecutions that roll through it. Obviously, the Diddy trial, Ghislaine Maxwell trial, Epstein trial, these were all brought there. Sam Bankman-Fried. High-profile cases go there. The lawyers who work inside that district, they're for real. And those lawyers are planning on big things for their careers. They're not going to squeal. They're going to play by the rules so that they can get a payout when they're done. This evidence sits inside of lockers in the Southern District of New York right now. Why can't we get it? Well, it doesn't belong to the FBI. So let me just dispatch you of that. It doesn't belong to the FBI or Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. They don't even have a right to it. Pam Bondi does. Here's why. Because this case is on appeal with Ghislaine Maxwell, this evidence is currently what's called under seal, meaning that this evidence could be used in a trial to exonerate someone, to free someone from prison, to prosecute someone. It's being used actively by the DOJ currently. Because this case is on appeal, Ghislaine Maxwell is going to try and get back into court, and she's going to try and use this evidence. Now, who can have access to the evidence? The judge. Their lawyers, Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers, and the lawyers for the federal government. And of course, Maine Justice can too. But it's the Southern District of New York that is locked up this evidence. So all of the things that would create a trust bond between the Trump administration and the American people is currently under lock. Now, there is a way to get it. Because this, of course, seems like it would be a very convenient deep state tactic to ensure that we never get any evidence. And that you continue this friction between federal law enforcement and the heads of these departments and the MAGA base. And you continue what I personally believe is an operation to discredit them. I believe this is not that's being currently run, and it's being run effectively. There are ways that Maine Justice, Pam Bondi, but they control this evidence. They have all of it. They have control of it, can request in the public interest and can argue that this needs to be released and can go about releasing it. Maybe little bits here and there, maybe big tranches. And as a massive, hopeful call out, let me explain. What they did with JFK was the gold standard. What happened with JFK may not have made you happy. It didn't make me 100% happy. It was imperfect, meaning there's no such thing as like a smoking gun, but it was incredible. Hundreds of thousands of documents. Very fascinating things that we learn about Operation Mongoose, about the ops that were run all throughout Central America, all throughout the world by the CIA during that time. Connections with the foreign intelligence agencies, the mafia, the mob, Mossad. It's fascinating. The constellation got sort of put together, and people's priors were either confirmed or unconfirmed. And through doing that, Tulsi established trust with the American people. She said, I trust you that you can handle it. Here it is. And the most amazing thing about these documents, the most amazing thing about them, virtually zero redactions. She wasn't just releasing black pages to us, which are an insult. There was almost no redactions. And I spoke yesterday with Anna Paulina Luna, who has been such a pit bull on all this. And she was whistling Dixie, man. She was so happy. She says you have virtually every document in the JFK release that I requested through my security clearance and my job on the Intel Committee. You have virtually everything. There are a couple of documents that are still lingering there, waiting to be released. They're going to be released. She's so happy about it. This is the gold standard and the only way out for the Trump administration. Let me just say it. There's one way out, and that is through. What happened yesterday was an insult to all of us. And I don't like that. I don't like it when there's unnecessary frictions with the base. This was a crisis. And it can be fixed. It has to be fixed immediately. There needs to be press conferences on this. There needs to be an explanation of what I just explained to you about how this process works, where this evidence is, why it's locked up, what it's being used for, and a promise that after Ghislaine Maxwell exhausts her last appeal, that it will all be released, all of it. And there's one final fix. The last thing I'll say on this. The final fix is this. There's no statute of limitations. Yeah. No statute of limitations on rape. No statute of limitations on child abuse. These are massive and serious federal crimes. Has Bill Clinton ever been brought in for questioning on this? You know what a Trump administration could do to actually truly rectify all of this is to say, you know what? Not only that, not only was there a client list, but one of them was a president. And we don't take that lightly. And so it's time to bring in Bill Clinton for some serious questioning about this. Bill Clinton had Jeffrey Epstein visit the White House dozens of times. Dozens. All right? Look at Ghislaine Maxwell here in this photo. Look at her glaring at, but look, they know. They know. Bill Clinton flew on the Lolita Express. He was on the island. The women who were abused by Jeffrey Epstein say that Epstein told him Bill Clinton liked him young. That's an exact quote. None of this is debatable. None of it. There it is, right there. What did Jeffrey Epstein say about Bill Clinton? One of Jeffrey Epstein's victims says, he says Clinton liked him young, referring to little girls. These are in the documents. This is not up for debate. We have the evidence. So here's a way that you restore the faith in the American people. You explain what this painting is. Explain to the American, go bring Bill Clinton in and ask him, what's that exactly? Because this was hanging in the foyer of Jeffrey Epstein's $61 million townhouse in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Why are you wearing Monica Lewinsky's famous blue dress with DNA evidence on it in this chair? Can you explain that, please, Mr. President, sir? If you do that to Bill Clinton, and to my knowledge, ALX, tell me if I'm wrong, to my knowledge, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have never had to answer for this on the record, ever. If there was a clip of them doing it, I'd have it. There's that one guy in the photo line, Bill Clinton glares at him. That guy doesn't, that's not real, okay? Bill Clinton in a photo line having some guy ask him about it. I'm talking about has anybody credibly ever asked? In a real interview setting about this. When you're in a chair and you can't get away. That's what we need. That's how you restore faith and trust. That's where the documents are. That's who can get them. And that's the truth. We did the research, ladies and gentlemen, and we lay it before you. And we say this. We say simply this. Actual justice for the victims here means doing these things. Actual faith and confidence in the American people and the MAGA base means doing these things. It must be done. The restoration of faith in these departments require you to do it. You're doing great work. I believe that Dan and Cash, I believe that there's really incredible work being done. And moments like this carve out at the faith that you must have to be successful. And so it is an existential crisis. It is a real problem. It's something that really needs to be fixed. And that's how you fix it. Okay? Because I want them to be successful. We do this work because we want them to be successful. We want to be successful in this. No more protecting predators. Okay? All right. That's what we learned, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sure we'll learn a lot from our next guest, the great Byron Donald, congressman, who will be Florida's next governor. Let's rock and roll. Forgive me, Congressman. I just had to get a little something off my chest there. The American people demand justice and demand that things run smoothly and operate smoothly. We just were at Alligator Alcatraz, so I wanted to start off by just asking about that. That was a pretty smooth operation and was a remarkable day, actually. I know you flew back with the president. Tell me all about it.
It was a great day. Look, first and foremost, you got to give credit to Governor DeSantis and James Uthmeyer. They did really a fast job of being able to answer the call from the Department of Homeland Security and Kristi Noem. And at the end of the day, what's happened in Florida is, I think people might remember a few months ago when the governor and the legislature were going back and forth in this battle over a deportation package in the state legislature. And when they resolved that and got that through, what started happening in our state is every law enforcement agency signed up for 287G, and the 287G program and started arresting criminal illegals in the streets of Florida. And so our jails are full all over the state. And I think that there was a necessity to have that facility. And so, working with DHS, the governor and his team were able to put that facility together relatively quickly. I think 8 days is how long it took them to put it together. And now there's a place to house illegal aliens, illegal aliens, while they're being set up to be processed out of the country by ICE. And so, credit to them. Great day to see the facility unfold. And, we move on. Next thing up.
Yeah. Okay. So is this going to be like a operational facility long term in the state of Florida? Do you think that there'll be a need for this in 2 years, potentially when you are governor?
It depends. And to be blunt, it really depends. I think part of that is what is the actual flow of illegal aliens in Florida per se. Do you need that bed space continuously. Our main detention facility in the state of Florida is Chrome Avenue in Homestead, south of Miami. And that's the main facility where illegal aliens are housed as they're being processed out of the country. And so Chrome Avenue is full. It's been full for months, and our county jails are full. So it's really going to be based upon what the bed space is in the main facilities before you have to get to something like Alligator Alcatraz. So it could stay up for a year or so. That is really going to be on a case-by-case basis, working with Donald Trump and his administration to do what's best for the people of Florida.
I'm asking my producers to grab the sign there. I just couldn't believe it. Like the way the state operates is so spectacular. The fact that it doesn't get like cowed or bent into being weepy and weaklings, it like leans in. Alligator Alcatraz signs are now up around Alligator. This was supposed to be like a moniker that was harmful or that the Republican Party would run away from, and they put it on a damn official government road sign, the Alligator Alcatraz signs. That's great energy. That's great energy inside of the state.
Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, in Florida, we really don't care about political correctness. We haven't for a very long time. It's really about just being effective and just making sure you're addressing the challenges and the needs that the people have. And so this is one of them. And you know, as long as this is an issue in our state, where we have a lot of illegals and we have a problem housing them, we're going to put them in a detention facility. I know the second one that's going to be up at Camp Landing, which is in the northern part of our state, where our National Guard, that's their bases. That's going to be the second facility. I think that's probably going to be up either later this month or sometime over the summer. That facility is going to be opened as well. And it's really about making sure we take the pressure off of our jails. But when it comes to the political correctness, we don't care in Florida, to be blunt. We just don't care. We're going to do what's right. We're going to do what's necessary. The media can be upset. The Democrats, you know, who knows what they're going to do? Maybe they'll curse at another press conference or whatever they're going to do. We're going to be focused on the right solutions, the common sense solutions for the people of Florida.
So I wanted to touch really quickly on Big Beautiful Bill. And this was obviously the big news heading out of the weekend. I believe you were there at the signing, and I believe that also you were part of the major battle inside of the House to get this across the finish line. There was a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth. There's a lot of like actual literal crying on the steps of the Capitol for members of Congress across the aisle. We saw it. There are photos of them weeping real tears. What's it like to serve with such a group of petty theater kids in Congress?
I mean, honestly, it's so much play acting that goes on with the Democrats. Everything is a crisis when they're not getting their way. All of a sudden, the crocodile tears come out when they're not getting their way. It's so stupid. It's so ridiculous. I didn't go to the bill signing. The second we were done, I came home. I was like, you know what? I had my fill of Washington. I'm gonna come back to Florida. But it was a great bill signing. I know the president was very happy, and so was everybody that stayed. Look, when it comes to the bill, we were very serious from day one. We were going to extend President Trump's tax policy. That was going to happen. We were going to provide Tom Homan and Kristi Noem the $150 billion they need to basically set up the largest deportation operation in American history. And they need the bed space, they need the vehicles, they need the man hours until that bill gives them the resources they need. We were going to do that in defense and a couple other things that had to get done. But the only thing that the Democrats want to complain about is Medicaid and SNAP. And all we did in there is put in stricter eligibility requirements and this thing called, having to work. Like if you're able-bodied, yeah, you got to work. And the work isn't like, Benny, it's not like saying they have to go out and do 40 hours a week. All we're saying is you have to do 20 hours a week. And that's not even actually having a job. It's 20 hours a week working, looking for a job, volunteering, or going to school. Like that's the work requirements in the bill. And so you have the Democrats who are just like, oh my gosh, you're kicking people off of healthcare. No, what we're saying is, number one, you have to be doing something to demonstrate that you're trying to get yourself off of these programs. Number two, yeah, we're going to check eligibility. The error rate, this is something that is important. The error rate on SNAP is over 10% in the United States. Every state has this massive error gap in the food stamp program. The reason why? Because we don't check eligibility. Like this is the stupidity that happens in Washington and in states around the country. So all we're saying is, yeah, you got to check eligibility. And for that, you got tears on the steps of the Capitol. I mean, it's a show that makes no sense.
We actually have the photo here. This is a
Like,
representative.
yeah, like, what is this? Look at this guy. Are you kidding me? I mean, come on, man. I think that's Gomez out of California. I think
he's
that's who that
50,
is.
bro. Hey, I mean, Byron, he's 50. He's a 50-year-old man sobbing there on the steps of a Capitol. Like, have some. Do you have any honor? Do you have any pride? You're gonna cry on the steps of the Capitol because a bill didn't go your way? It's maddening. And our take on this was that we think that it'll end the Democrat Party, that it's going to lead to a permanent minority for the Democrat Party. They're going to lose 25 seats when the deportations happen. There's no traffic in LA anymore, Byron, because of the deportations. The mass deportations are going to lead to a permanent 100-year Republican majority and their inability to win a presidential. That's what we think, and that's what we think the tiers are actually all about.
Well, listen, as much as I think our party is doing a great job, Benny, I love you and I love the enthusiasm. But listen, the Republican Party, they have an opportunity. They can, we can mess things up. And the way we mess things up is that, we're not serious about all the challenges facing this country. What we did in One Big Beautiful Bill is the start. That is not the end. There's a significant amount of work that still needs to be done. And then, Republicans have to do the job of getting into these communities. Yes, I agree. We have to send a lot of illegals home. Let's send them home. That doesn't mean you just pack up bags and sit on your couch because you think you won the day. No, we have to continue to message. We have to continue to engage communities. We have to talk about what we're actually doing in public policy and not what the radical left says we're doing in public policy. When it comes to Medicaid in particular, I'll expand a little bit. There are more reforms that need to happen in Medicaid. Right now in the United States, because of Obamacare, an able-bodied adult gets $9 for every $1 a state government spends on Medicaid. But if you're a pregnant woman, if you're a poor child, if you're somebody who has a real disability, or you're elderly and you're poor and you're on Medicaid, the federal government pays about $5 for every $5 state governments, for every $1 state government pays. It's crazy. So we actually fund able-bodied adults to a higher level than people who truly are in need. We have to stop that. That makes no fiscal sense. And when you tell people this, they say, yeah, why are we spending $9 on an able-bodied adult, but $5 on a pregnant woman? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But that's what Obamacare did. I believe if we actually explain this to the American people and start bringing the real reforms fiscally at the federal level, we will continue to maintain majorities. Like, majorities, my view on it the whole time has been majorities. The purpose of majorities is to accomplish an agenda, not to make sure people have gavels and people have titles. It's about accomplishing an agenda and institutionalizing one. And I think the reason why the Democrats are sobbing is because we are beginning the process of unwinding the agenda that they have institutionalized in Washington, D.C. So if you're a radical leftist, yeah, that probably brings tears to your eyes because your agenda sucks. Then what has been institutionalized in America sucks, and it's time to unwind it.
I don't know how you go home at night and look in the mirror as a man when you're like sobbing and weeping at 50-year-old. You're 50 years old, man, bro. Like, lock it up, man. Okay, so I just wanted to really quickly give you an opportunity to respond to this. I've been begging to have you on because of a number that we pulled on AOC a week ago, where we went to where AOC is really from, Byron, something that we've talked about before. In fact, you inspired me to do this. And 40 million views later, it turns out a lot of people were very interested in Sandy from Yorktown Heights. Sandy from Yorktown Heights is a very different person than AOC. She was raised in a nice home. It's worth $500,000 today on a pretty street. I spoke with her neighbors. There were people with groomed dogs on the street and little American flags and some Trump signs, actually. Sandy comes from Trump land, in fact, a Trump neighborhood, a clean and beautiful town that we were able to enjoy our afternoon, and I even ate some handmade ice cream. It was wonderful, patriotic, and lovely. The exact opposite of what she claims. Sandy claims to be from the Bronx, that she was raised in the Bronx, she's a girl from the Bronx, and that she grew up in the Bronx. It's not true. It's a total lie. And given your history with AOC and the fact that she was crying about this week, I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond.
I got no words for her, to be honest with you. To me, honestly, she cosplays. She cosplays as a revolutionary. And that's just the way it is, man. I mean, look, I think you're right. You're right about the background of where she grew up. It really makes no sense why she advocates for the things that she does, except, she went to college in the Northeast somewhere and came out with these radical ideas that make no sense. So yeah, she gets to run around the country and talk about all the poverty and all the stuff, but she didn't grow up that way. And if she had took an opportunity to really understand economics and all the hard work her family had to do to put her in position and actually respected that, then I think that her politics would actually be very different than what they are. Look, but this happens a lot in politics. Like, oh, the guy on the screen, Bomdani, yeah, what did they say about him? He said that guy applied to college saying he was black. I mean, come on, man. Like this is stuff. This is stuff we deal with all the time. I think a lot of them, they think that, this is the way to, get hits, be on TV, have the spotlight. And so they push these crazy agendas that really do not work. So that's all I really have to say about her. It's really a shame to me. I think it's important for the Democrats to just start looking at the real world, looking at real economics, stop having Trump derangement syndrome. And I think if they really cared about a lot of these people that they say that they care about, they'd work with us on sound policy. Like, I'll give you one. I'll throw one out if AOC is watching. Nuclear power. If you really want to save the planet, if you think you want to have green tech, green energy, then we should work together on nuclear, because solar panels are not green. Wind turbines are not green. They're actually quite dirty. Nuclear power, we can mine the uranium here in the United States. We can enrich it in the United States. We can build the power plants in the United States. But AOC, I'm talking to you directly now. It is the crazy regulatory environmental policy that you support that stops the United States from actually having real green baseload power in the United States to lower energy prices on the people in the Bronx, people in Florida, all across the country. And all it would take is for your side of the aisle to join me. Let's reform NEPA. Let's actually reform the regulatory environment at the NRC and at the Department of Energy. Give President Trump an opportunity to build small-scale reactors around the United States. It'll be great for everybody. We can strengthen the grid. We can actually cut carbon emissions. We can do a lot. You see, Benny, like, that's real policy. And so I think that I'm not going to criticize her anymore. I will invite Ms. Ocasio-Cortez to join me. We can actually work together on nuclear power. We can get some things done. And so let's see if she takes a challenge.
Sandy from Yorktown identifies as from the Bronx. Mondami, here's the article you just referenced. He identifies as black. I mean, who are you to question him, Byron? He identifies as that.
Yeah, I'm only a black guy, so it's fine. This stuff's crazy, man.
You are a black guy running for governor of the most exciting and electric state in the entire union, a state that can actually get things done. We saw it together at Alligator Alcatraz last week. It was awesome. Everybody needs to follow Byron Donald's. Here is his account. He's got 1.1 million subs, and he is rocking and rolling to become. Yeah, look at that, man.
That's a lot of followers, man.
You're cooking, man. You're cooking.
That's a lot.
You're cooking. Final question, just given the fact that it's the topic of the day, and it's a simple one. As governor of Florida, would you be in favor of releasing just absolutely everything that the state of Florida has in a prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein? Because it was a state case that happened in 2008.
Yeah, I would release it at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, just like let people see what happened.
Yeah, I have no problem doing that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's good. I think that's how transparency works. That's what they did with the JFK files, and it worked, man. And I think that's what people want, and that's what puts this finally to bed. Thank you, Byron. Everybody go support Byron. Fight with those who are fighting for us. Godspeed, man.
Take it easy, Benny.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got Viva trapped in hot cars. Let's rock and roll. You don't want to be trapped in a hot bed, do you? I run hot, okay? As you may well know on this program. My Helix sleep mattress keeps me cool. It is boiling here in Tampa. It is a very hot place, and I don't care what kind of an AC unit you have. You're going to be cooking inside. Leave the door open for like a second. That humidity gets rid of your AC. It's a nightmare for me when I'm hot and sleeping, and it's too hot in the room. It causes actual pain for me. It's terrible. You wake up with back pain, leg pains. My Helix sleep mattress. I sleep like a baby. It keeps me cool. It is so chill, and it's something that we love so much, my wife and I, that when we moved our girls upstairs out of their cribs, I have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old, we got them little Helix sleep mattresses. It is an amazing experience every single night, and it is something that is so important in this environment. And if you are somebody who just wants to have improved sleep, and if you're somebody who tracks your sleep like I do, you need a Helix mattress. Helix Sleep is what the entire Johnson family uses, and it's also something that I cannot sleep without. We traveled over the weekend, and my only gripe was that I missed my mattress at home. So go to helixsleep.com/Benny for 25% off site-wide. helixsleep.com/Benny, 25% off site-wide. Make sure you are here entering the show. Name Benny at checkout so that they know that we sent you. helixsleep.com/Benny. All right, ladies and gentlemen, somebody who has been extremely patient, who we're very excited to have on the program, Viva Fry, former litigator and somebody who has been spitting hot takes on this whole Epstein crisis, joins us now from a hot car, and we're thankful for him. Here we go. Viva, you're at the beach. You're at the beach on what I assume is not Epstein Island.
I am not on an Epstein Island. I'm at the beach. The kids are playing, and I'll get back to them in a bit. But can't say no to you, and can't say no to talk about this because it's a debacle. It's a debacle, Benny.
I know the pain of recording inside of a hot car. So let me just start by saying, what is your take here? You've been very public about it on your X. Everyone must follow Viva. First shout out for his account. He's at 750,000. Everybody get in there and follow Viva. What is your major takeaway here from this crisis of the Epstein release?
It's an abject debacle. The only question is who's to blame and who's responsible for this. People want to give Bongino a hard time. Bongino's deputy director, so he's not in charge in the sense that he doesn't call the final shot. Director is Kash Patel, who's on record saying Bill Gates is on the Epstein list. He said it, a year and a half ago? And now we're expected to believe this unsigned DOJ memo. No list, no blackmail material. Epstein killed himself because he was unsupervised for 10 hours without anybody checking in on him. Whereas even if that's true, that's a conspiracy. So, at the end of the day, I believe Bondi is misled people with her statements. And now nothing that's happening makes any sense. And the Epstein issue is a litmus test for the Trump movement. I said it, months ago. This is a litmus test, and if they fail to deliver on it, people are going to lose faith and ask legitimate questions. How on earth are they saying no blackmail list, no incriminating client list? And you notice they put the word client list in quotes. So being a lawyer and knowing how legalese is drafted, something can be incriminating but not a client list. It can be a client. It can be not incriminating, but a client list, I guess. So they've drafted this in a way that nobody believes it, period. And that in and of itself is a fundamental problem.
Why would you release this to left-wing media? The entire operation seems so utterly bungled. You have to assume that on the inside, they're being played. You have to assume that this is a live grenade that the pin's been pulled and handed in order to discredit Team Trump.
Well, so that's one issue as well. The memo comes out, and my first query was, all right, nobody believes it. Kash Patel himself is on record for saying the exact opposite a year and a half ago. An unsigned, undated memo. And I thought for a second maybe it was fake, but it's on the DOJ website. Now, possibly there's been another sort of declassified or low confidence classification leak. Maybe there's a saboteur who puts this on the website to sabotage the Trump campaign, but the DOJ hasn't come out to repudiate it. They haven't come out to contradict it. It's in line with everything they've been saying to everybody's disbelief for the last 2 months, to the contradiction of what Pam Bondi herself said a few months ago. And so what in the name of sweet holy hell is going on? Is this a real document? How is it not dated? How is it not signed? How does it just appear on the DOJ website without any sort of announcement? And what the heck is going on? Because my theory to all of this, or at least one of the questions I had, if you wanted to discredit Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, you would make them basically publicly say, I love Big Brother, and say something that contradicts what they have been saying themselves for the last 3-4 years. Bongino saying, never let go of the Epstein file. This is important. This implicates the hires up. Patel coming out and saying, Bill Gates is on the client list. And now this memo that makes Patel look like a total liar. It makes Bondi look like a liar. But if your goal was to discredit Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, two of the men that MAGA and the populist movement had the greatest faith in, this is exactly how you do it. But there hasn't been an answer to how this unsigned, undated memo is leaked. And it says things that nobody believes, not even people on the left. And even if it's true, Epstein killed himself because he was left unsupervised for 10 hours with extra linens, no cellmate, taken off suicide watch, and no one checked in on him from 10 in the evening until 6 in the morning. That's a conspiracy that needs to be explored, not accepted as just another day at the Metropolitan Detention Facility.
I'm so glad that you said that, Viva, because what's happening right now, prima facie, even if they had all the, even if all of this,
I can't hear anything anymore. Darn it! Hold on a second.
My apologies. Here, ladies and gentlemen, why don't we reconnect with Viva? Let's give it just a second. Viva, how we doing? Okay, so let's pop them off and we'll have a producer reconnect, and hopefully we can reconnect with Viva. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize for this. We have so much to say on this matter. And I want my production team to lock in here, and I want to get Viva back if that's at all possible. Give us just a second, ladies and gentlemen. Again, let me preview for you. We have the Trump administration. We have the Trump administration live soon with a full cabinet briefing, where I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of commentary on this. It's not started yet. Here's just sort of a holding screen. We, the best production team on the internet, will be monitoring and are monitoring it. You won't miss a second. Let me know when Viva is back, Klein, and if we're ready to rock. Okay, great. What Viva is, of course, talking about is the cell inside of the prison, and we have a lot to say on that, and we have a lot to talk about on that, and the DOJ not explaining the video that they released. They released one single piece of evidence. We had to get to Byron, so I didn't get a chance to talk about it. There's one single piece of evidence, which is this video of this cell door. And it's not the cell door to Jeffrey Epstein's cell. It's not even the cell door to his cell block. It's insane. And then the video itself also has missing minutes out of it. Missing minutes that have been clipped out. Look at this. You can see it go. You skip an entire minute, and you can see the aperture of the camera actually change when the minute gets either deleted or removed. It's incredible. We believe, and breaking live on this show, that we actually have the missing minute. We looked really hard, and we looked for a long time, and we were able to use all of our sources to get this minute. And we're going to break it live for you right now on the program. Here we go. This is why they it's a meme. It's a meme. Okay, it's a meme. We did do real reporting on this. This is a meme. Unfortunately, I wish it was this easy. All right, ladies and gentlemen. As Viva is reconnecting, I'm waiting for my producers. ALX, make sure that let's rock and roll on this, because otherwise we're going to have to move. We do have Tom Fitton, who has been just an absolute G when it comes to suing the federal government over these Epstein docs, who will be joining the program. Viva, again, on his phone inside of a hot car, and we're thankful for him. You should be on your phone and using a Patriot Mobile device. Patriot Mobile, ladies and gentlemen, is here for you whenever you need it. I don't know if that's what Viva is using, but I can tell you that when we are out and about and out in the field, Patriot Mobile locks in and allows us to publish even from Alligator Alcatraz, where we were able to put up a lot of viral content using our Patriot Mobile device. Out in the middle of nowhere, we had cell service that really could kick. I mean, we were able to upload pretty easily out there. And you can't really think of a more rural area than in the dead center of the Everglades. One road in, no roads out. So, ladies and gentlemen, our Patriot Mobile device locked in for us. It can lock in for you with unlimited data plans, mobile hotspots, international roaming, internet backup, and so much more. Switching is easy. Activate in minutes from the comfort of your own home. Make the switch today. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code Benny for a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/Benny to be able to lock in with the only Christian conservative wireless provider. All right. ALX, give me that thread. I need that thread. No Viva? Ah, so sad. Oh, that sucks. Alex, I need that thread. Thank you. This is exactly what I wanted to go through. Yeah. The thread of what we actually saw in the evidence. This is going to like sort of lock in, and we're going to wait for Tom Fitton here. Let me tell you what happens next in the show. We're going to wait for Tom Fitton. Tom Fitton's going to join in just a few minutes, in a few moments. And then at 11 a.m., if it is now 11:14 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, there is going to be a Trump cabinet meeting. That's going to include, of course, everyone in the cabinet, including Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, and RFK, and so on. And so they're going to walk through. Yes, that's exactly right, ALX. This is exactly the thread that I wanted. They're going to talk through, all of the many things that are happening in the world today. But boy, howdy, is the DOJ really in trouble with this, because they did release one piece of physical evidence. We did our monologue on they have to release it all. It's the only way out. The one piece of physical evidence that they released was this video that had a missing minute out of it. And this missing minute of this video doesn't even show the door to Epstein's cell block. It's a wild breakdown here. Let's rip through it, ladies and gentlemen, and Tom Fitton will be joining us very shortly. We apologize for the technical difficulties with Viva. He's such a G, and we just freaking love that guy. Okay, fantastic. DOJ releases Jeffrey Epstein camera footage, but what are we really looking at here? It's a 5-minute clip from the CCTV camera footage of the special housing unit floor Jeffrey Epstein was held the night he killed himself. It is posted in two versions in the DOJ website. One that has been enhanced for lighting and clarity. In this enhanced version, the entire video lasts 11 hours and is uploaded. I've uploaded it, but what exactly are we looking at here? This guy breaks down the video in incredible fashion. First thing that we need to understand is how the special housing unit is distributed. Every floor has 6 boxes or cell blocks that contain 8 cells each. Those cells are stacked one on top of each other. If you stand in front of the cell block's gate entrance, you can see that there are secured doors of the cell box on both sides and one utility between pairs of them. The rationale for those non-secured doors between the cells is to have easy access for maintenance of the plumbing and electrical. To further clarify, this is the view from the observation floor. There you have a prison guard sitting at the desk, and you can see simultaneously that cell block entrances both upper and lower. In this picture, the L tier upper block is where Epstein's cell was, right there. Thank you. Stay with me, Clem. Thank you. Right there. In fact, the officer station had a unique angle of Epstein's cell. Now let's look at the screenshot from the video the DOJ shared. So you can see here that the officer would have been able to see Epstein's cell door and cell block. So when they say the officers fell asleep, they said that for a reason. They knew that the officers that were stationed there would be able to look directly at Epstein's door. They needed an alibi because something bad happened. You immediately notice that whatever this is not the cell block that Epstein was in. Those are not cell doors. In fact, this 10 minutes into the video, a person just comes out of one of those doors with a trash bin and places it in the middle of the floor. So if it's not a cell block, what is this? The space that we're looking at is the common space near the elevator's staircase. I've marked it myself on the diagram below. The red dot is the position where the cameras are. The DOJ released video was recorded. This is the opposite of the officer's station, and in no way could have seen Epstein's cell block, let alone Epstein's cell. Even the one piece of evidence that they released is a lie. They said, here's Epstein's cell door. It's not. The way you can confirm this is the space marked on the schematics and the angle and the shape of the floor that matches the angles that we see in the doors in the video. The door is marked 46. That leads to the main entrance. This is the exit for the entire tier. So if we go once more to the DOJ footage, you can see that the officer station at the far end. When you zoom in, you see some teeth on the side. You can see them right there. Those teeth are the staircase up to Jeffrey Epstein's cell. You see them right there on the far right-hand side. Guys, is Tom ready? Is Tom set? Okay, great. Okay, we'll move very quickly here. The only thing that we can remotely see in the direction of Epstein's cell block is this silver staircase. You can go up and down the staircase without being seen by the camera. Anyone could have entered Epstein's cell, even in the footage. Now, this is important. Gate 46 is the only way in or out of the SHU cell block floor. Okay, Got it. So this is the full entry to the floor. We have 11 hours footage throughout the night with that one missing minute. So you must prove that nobody entered or exited the floor, right? But the obvious question is, how do we know that someone wasn't there beforehand? How do we know someone wasn't in before the DOJ video started? By all measures, you could have stayed in Epstein's cell block. You could have actually not been seen by the camera or the guard if you were just hidden inside of the utility closet or the crawl space. Right there. There's Epstein's door, and there is a unlocked security closet. And there is the broken camera. So, of course, we have no footage of what actually happened. We have no footage of Epstein's door. It's all a lie. And the footage that we're seeing is the entirety of the cell block. Anyone could have entered Epstein's actual tier. And that's the one piece of evidence we got with zero explanation. And I cannot emphasize enough what an insult that is. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, who has been just such an absolute force of nature on this topic. And I cannot wait to hear what he has to say. Here we go. Tom, the floor is yours. I just want to preview by a little bit of reporting that we did yesterday. We called nonstop. I spoke to what must have been 50 people inside of the Trump administration yesterday. And what I got is that the vast majority of the Epstein evidence is currently under seal in the Southern District of New York, awaiting an appeal from Ghislaine Maxwell. And that is the excuse that they're giving for not giving any of that evidence out. But we think this is a calamity and a crisis for the Trump administration and an insult to the MAGA base. The floor is yours, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, we've sued for the documents. They haven't told the court anything like that. What they've said is that they're reviewing documents. They've done a preliminary search, and they don't know when they're going to give us the records. We haven't gotten one document under FOIA. We haven't even gotten these videos, which are responsive. We didn't even get the binders. I don't. Did you get the binder?
No. Thank God. I get down on my knees and I thank the Lord, actually.
Well,
every day for many things, Tom, for my children, for the happy life that I lead, a fulfilled life, and then I thank them that I didn't get an Epstein binder on camera. So.
Well, we didn't get the binder either, and I don't blame others for getting the binder. That's fine. It was government records. But on the other hand, why hasn't that been released under the FOIA process yet? And
it was released, right?
It wasn't released under FOIA. And so we don't know what they're withholding and why, what category of records it includes, where did they look for them? This is the process that's in place under law in terms of producing records like that. But they chose to do a public leak, which, as you say, in detail, highlighted the controversial nature of what they were up to, which was a modified limited hangout of the Epstein records. And I'm not quite sure what is going on with the leadership of the Justice Department and the FBI that they thought a memo signed by no one, really attacking people who have raised questions about these issues, essentially says, we've looked at the evidence, we've concluded X, Y, and Z, but you can't see the evidence, so you're just going to have to trust us on it. And so contemporaneous with that, they said, well, then in the memo, they also said, we're not going to give you any more information. But we just filed a report yesterday, the Justice Department included. They reported, the Justice Department, to the court that the FBI, Justice Department were still searching and reviewing records for possible release. So what is the game that's going on here? I don't know. It's confusing, but it doesn't reassure people that this case is being handled appropriately. They even understand what transparency means in the general scheme of things.
So the whole thing has been such a bungled mess, and it's created now a unnecessary crisis for the Trump administration. I guess I'll just begin with this, Tom, since you've been doing this work in order to hold accountable the DOJ for the better part of 2 or 3 decades at Judicial Watch. The era of trust me, bro, we looked into it, move along, that's done. That's over. In fact, saying that is an insult.
Yeah.
And not showing your work is so disrespectful to the base that has been told that by Biden and Obama regimes and by insurrectionist regimes under Trump term 1 to just shut up and move along, right? Gretchen Whitmer was kidnapped, okay? She was totally kidnapped. Shut up. Don't ask questions. January 6th was an insurrection. Don't ask questions. There is no such thing as a Hunter Biden laptop. Don't ask questions. Shut up. Like, we've been told that for and this is the same tactic, which is, it's just insulting. And it's not going to fly. I mean, I guess that's my ultimate point, Tom, is that, like, it's not like this is going to, was this meant to, like, get us all to go away? I don't like.
No, who wrote the memo? Why was it leaked to Axios? Why wasn't it just produced in the ordinary course? I haven't seen anyone from the Justice Department or FBI kind of provide any details beyond what's in the memo. And as you point out with the video, and it was readily apparent from the memo itself, we're going to release video that doesn't show you what happened in at Epstein's cell. And that should be convincing and persuasive to you. It doesn't resolve the issue that you've got two competing forensic analyses of what happened to Epstein. You have the government version, which is that he committed suicide. You have a version created by the family of Epstein, who hired a separate pathologist, Dr. Baden, I believe, who concluded it was a homicide. And so if there's serious evidence it was a homicide, that tape doesn't tell you one way or the other what happened. And I'm sorry, they may be right in the conclusions, but until we get the underlying information and what they looked at, what evidence there is, I'm sorry, it's not going to be convincing. And even in the text of the memo, there's no, quote, incriminating client list. What does that mean? Is there a non-incriminating client list? Is there a list of contacts? Are we getting hung up on the word client list as opposed to, some other list of communications and people he was in communication with concerning his terrible activities? There's no credible evidence he blackmailed anyone. Well, was there less than credible evidence? And how did you determine it? And, Dan and Cash, I know, would be asking the same questions if they were in our shoes, right?
Yeah.
And we haven't gotten the answers yet. And I think we have a right to demand them. I didn't promise to release the Epstein files. I didn't make these promises. The administration made the promises. I didn't go on TV and said the Epstein client list is on my desk. Everything's going to be released. And I understand there are reasons that you can't release everything. But to play this shell game of we're going to release everything, well, we're not going to release everything because it's all pornography. Well, come on. No one wants to see pornography. That's not the issue here.
Don't insult.
It's very frustrating. But we're in court. The memo is going to stop our FOIA case. I mean, like I said, we just filed a brief yesterday, a joint status report updating the court. The records are under review. So there's still a decision by the Trump administration. Are they going to hide the records that are under review?
Here's an image from the FBI. This image was taken and explained in a trial, in a deposition by the special agent in charge who raided Epstein's $61 million Upper West Side mansion that he was leasing from the State Department. Very interesting story, Tom. Do you lease from the State Department, Tom? That's strange. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, inside of that manila envelope was a stack of foreign passports where Jeffrey Epstein used different names and aliases. That's odd. That's not something normal. You wouldn't find that in your grandfather's attic. Or if you did, maybe you'd had some real questions. Those boxes, Tom, according to the FBI special agent in charge, contain bags of diamonds. None of that is predatory material. All of that is quite interesting and might put together a constellation of who Jeffrey Epstein was and what he was doing or not doing. Why not just release that?
Yeah, whose privacy interest is being protected by withholding that information? Epstein is dead.
Yes.
Are there third parties whose names might need to be redacted? That's fine. Redact their names, justify the redactions in court, and give us the rest of the documents. They've taken this transparency no more approach. We're shutting the door to any document release. And that is really, it's one thing to have a conclusion about what you've investigated, okay? That's fine. But then to say, we're not releasing anything else for no reason that I could see legally or politically would be justified, especially in light of their promises. And you know why they're not releasing it? Because of kooks like you, Benny. They are not going to feed the so-called conspiracy theories that have no basis.
Yeah.
And so they're going to punish us by refusing to release documents that we have a right to under the law. I mean, there's the FOIA, but the FOIA is a statutory codification of our inherent rights as American citizens to find out what our government's been up to.
Yes.
And not only what Epstein did, but how he died. Why is the Justice Department investigating the Justice Department? I mean, does anyone over there see a conflict of interest? An agency whose number one detainee, prisoner at the time, died in their custody? Maybe there should be a third-party investigation, just maybe. Or how about just disclosing everything that you possibly can under law to the American people, as opposed to, we've looked at the records, you can't see them, and you have to trust us that with our conclusions are valid or persuasive.
Quite the contrary, Tom. I'm trying to do the Trump administration a favor. Because what happens with a memo like this, which for the life of me, Tom, I can't figure out why the hell they would release. I mean, if anything, if you had come to this predetermined conclusion, drag it out, bring it out as far as you possibly can, sit down with Brett Baer for a straight hour, do a press conference, right? Explain your findings, show your work. If you really are going to come to that conclusion, at least do it in a dignified way. There's literally zero reason, as far as I can tell, to drop it on July 4th weekend after some huge wins from the Trump administration. As such a self-own, I don't get it. But beside all that, you and I are trying to help, because the worst thing you can possibly be seen as is a pederast protector, which is what happens when you release documents like this, unsigned in the dark of night to left-wing media. It looks like
it's not even dated.
It looks like you're part of the cover-up, Tom. Am I wrong?
I don't think AI wrote it, though.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, Tom, what can you give me, like, I know that you've given it in part. Can you explain to me the status report of your FOIAs, what you are going after? Have you learned anything about the evidence that the government is keeping from the American people?
So it's crazy town. So they had the public leak of information of the Epstein records. And so we saw there was an issue there. You had the Attorney General and the FBI Director complain about FBI obstruction of their efforts to review information, right? You had the Attorney General say the records were on her desk, including the list. And then they released this one group of records, and everyone was upset because it seemed to be a selective leak. It wasn't clear what else was out there and what next was happening. So we asked for the records under the Freedom of Information Act, and we got the runaround. So we sued back in April. We said, give us all the Epstein records, and give us records that Kash Patel and Attorney General Bondi have about this issue. So we filed the lawsuit that got some attention, as you know. And it's interesting, almost immediately we got a note from the Justice Department, Bondi's office has no records about Epstein. Wait, she just said she had all of the records on her desk. She was complaining vociferously about the FBI obstruction in New York of the release of the records. Remember, they were getting a truckload of documents or something. No records, and not one record has been released to us since then. And 2 weeks ago, they told the court I think they used exceptional circumstances. And then yesterday, in the joint status report with our federal FOIA lawsuit here in D.C., they told the court that they're still reviewing the records.
But what records?
When they're going to look at they've searched for and are reviewing FBI records and Justice Department records.
But I heard there was no records.
Or were we told yesterday they weren't going to be released to any of us? Well, that's not what they're telling the court. So it's one thing to send out a memo with no signature. It's another thing for a Justice Department lawyer I mean, we know what FOIA is. We've been, as you point out, we've been doing it for 30 plus years. So they're not going to be able to put this memo before the court. No court's going to take this memo seriously. And they're going to have to provide, in the ordinary course, we'll see how this case goes, either the record, a time frame for releasing the records, and then they have to explain to us and the court why they're withholding any records. And there's going to be a legal fight about it. All the excuses they use don't necessarily impact the FOIA disclosure. And, when they say, oh, some of these names are intertwined with the documents that we don't want to release, well, then that's no reason not to release the documents in whole. It means you take out the material that you think would be protected from disclosure. They don't want to, there's nothing normal about the way this case has been handled. And it's disturbing. It's disturbing. I tell you, I told Bannon this yesterday. I don't think the Biden people would have done this sort of gamesmanship with this type of issue. I mean, they would have just said you can't have the records, or they would have handled it through FOIA. Here, it's kind of a, I don't know, gaslighting 101, right? And it's really kind of juvenile in some respects to think that I don't know if juvenile is the right word, naive to think that this might pass for scrutiny. And, I understand President Trump wants to support his appointees over there. I would just tell President Trump, the FBI and the Justice Department are letting you down. The FBI can't be trusted to prosecute or investigate a jaywalking offense. He should set up his own investigative unit. And all these politically sensitive issues, he's got to handle directly. They've proven themselves, in my view. Well, first of all, the institutions are corrupted and can't be trusted. And I don't think the leadership has the kind of the full understanding of just how serious the issue is and the willingness to take make the hard choices. I mean, to me, it means Kash Patel tells President Trump, or President Trump tells Kash Patel, we have to have the FBI go the way of the USAID. Or Pam Bondi say, we can't trust this Justice Department to investigate anything that you're concerned about. I agree with Fitton. We got to have a special prosecutor that reports to you. Keep the DOJ and FBI out of it. Heck, they got to be the targets of the investigation.
Yes. Tom, you've seen so much corruption in D.C. in your career, and you've exposed so much of it. There are too many wins to really enumerate for Judicial Watch. So I just want to ask, based on all of your experience, what do you think is happening here?
I think, to be fair, I think what they are trying, right? I think they're making mistakes in how they're handling the issue. I think they know more because they're in these positions, and they should recognize they don't know as much as they think they know, and they don't have all of a sudden insights into the way the agencies work and the way these investigations are run after being on the job for 4 or 5 months. I would have brought the attitude they had coming in, saying, I can't trust anyone around me. These agencies are a mess. They tried to destroy the Republic just a few months ago, and we're pretending that the best thing to do is just, quote, let them do their jobs. Well, their version of doing their job was raiding Trump's home and going through his wife's closet. And do you think that these agencies, if they are left largely structurally the same, meaning full funding, no curtailing of powers, you name it, that the Democrats or even another Republican administration is going to come in and they won't do what they did again? Of course not. You've got to remove the threat to the Republic, and the FBI, in my view, needs to go the way of USAID or the Department of Education. I mean, we need to talk about ending the FBI as we know it.
I had an honest question that I posited yesterday, and I'm not sure that I know the full and comprehensive answer, but given your expertise on the subject matter, Tom, I got to ask you. Bill Clinton hosted Jeffrey Epstein dozens of times at the White House. This famous photo of him and Ghislaine Maxwell, and clearly Epstein and Maxwell were just eating Clinton alive. And then Bill Clinton, as soon as he left the White House, was like buddies with I mean, like the moment he left the White House, he was best friends. They were flying all around the world. In the depositions for some of the abused women, they say that, you know, Jeffrey Epstein said Clinton likes them young, and that they say that Clinton was on the island, right? They say they saw him there. On top of that, of course, Epstein had oil paintings commissioned of Bill Clinton in a blue dress at his house. All of this seems like plenty of evidence to, at the very least, ask Bill Clinton some questions about this relationship and about what he knows was going on. Why doesn't the Justice Department start there? Has Bill Clinton ever been federally questioned about his relationship with Epstein?
Well, they've told you. There's no information as that would justify or be a predicate for engaging in the type of inquiry you've asked about. And it's a perfectly reasonable and logical thought process you're going through. What did you see? You know, and it doesn't mean that Clinton is the target. He's a witness in the least, right?
Of course.
What did you see?
Of course.
I was called, you know, I had the FBI knocking on my door to ask me eventually about tweets I wrote. So don't tell me what the FBI isn't allowed to do or not do. I am so tired of the unwillingness to deal with the corruption of the prior administrations. Corruption, as I keep on saying, which it could destroy the country if it's left unchecked and people aren't held accountable for it. I mean, that's you end a republic by jailing your political opponents, and that's what they spent 10 years trying to do, and they don't seem interested in it over at the Justice Department and FBI. And if they are, it's like maybe we'll read about it in Axios in 2 weeks with some unsigned memo. But I've been doing it too long to kind of just pretend everything's okay. And it doesn't mean that the issues can't be handled in an appropriate way, and maybe we'll get to the place where I hope we are. But we're running out of time. Yeah. Some might say we're already out of time in terms of the political calendar and just administratively getting these types of investigations and prosecutions, if appropriate, going.
You end up forgetting stuff like this. Here's a photo. Ghislaine Maxwell eyeing Bill Clinton at his daughter's wedding. He only has one daughter. It's like the wedding of the century, and Ghislaine Maxwell's nearly in the front row. She's got an aisle seat. That's pretty high position. And of course, here's Bill on the plane.
Yeah, you know, we
on the plane. I mean,
we had asked many years ago for Secret Service records about his plane rides.
Yeah,
and I think they told us they didn't have anything.
Here's the White House. Here's the White House photos. I mean, I don't think people understand how far back this is when Clinton was president. This is inside of the White House. What does he know, right? Again, like, wouldn't it just be basic prosecutorial due diligence to bring Clinton, like to maybe voluntarily, but either way, to effort a line of query for Bill Clinton about what the hell was going on here? He seems to be witness to one of the more mysterious and stranger crimes, right? This was Jeffrey Epstein has been what's insane about the memo, Tom, is that they act as though Jeffrey Epstein wasn't convicted of child prostitution, which he was. And he wasn't convicted of sex trafficking, which he was. And that Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't convicted federally of sex trafficking, which she was. Like, it's so insulting. And given the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was doing all of that at this time, and there's other photos we know that what happened, we know this because of Virginia Roberts, there's all these massage tables, right? And the massage tables were massages given by these women that were being trafficked. There's photos of Bill Clinton getting massages, okay? Like in an airport. Like, they're real, they're authentic. None of it's even debatable. Nothing of what I just said is debatable.
I haven't seen those, thankfully.
I mean, it's not like inappropriate. Everyone has clothes on, but he's sitting there waiting in the airport in the Bahamas. He's getting a massage. And so, like, it boggles the mind. I guess I'm trying to be helpful here in saying that's a way that you could restore trust. Like, say, not only are we not going to dismiss this, we're going to like start bringing in people and like asking them questions about it. We're going to get to the bottom of this, along with full disclosure.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what this review entailed, but obviously they don't want to tell us, right? So if they question Bill Clinton, if there's an FBI 302, that might be responsive to this FOIA lawsuit. If they actually question any of the individuals we're concerned about, there would be records of it, or at least there ought to be. And as Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, their agencies don't want to disclose any of that to us now. That's their position. Well, I don't know if it's their position. Who wrote the memo? Who is going to take ownership for this memo?
It's something that, as I was thinking through this, I was trying to find like an example of this being done right. And it was very easy. What Tulsi did with JFK, and I want to get your thoughts on this. But my take is that Tulsi, it wasn't exactly perfect, but man, damn, did we ever get tens of thousands of new documents, some of them quite embarrassing for the intel agencies, frankly, and a lot of names, a lot of addresses, a lot of very interesting constellation of everything that was going on inside of the Intel Committee around the JFK assassination. Everything from connections to Mossad to connections to the mob, and operations like Operation Mongoose and some Black Ops stuff that was going on in South America and across the world. It's fascinating. And nobody, Tom, nobody really asked a ton of questions about JFK anymore. Because they're like, okay, you know, you gave us everything you got. What was destroyed has already been destroyed. And there was like an act of good faith. And I view that as the gold standard for declass. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Is that what
it's good? I don't want to be against transparency in terms of the general release of information. It's always good. And President Trump personally is the most transparent president we've ever had.
Yes.
But all I know is FOIA, right? Mm-hmm. And so when documents are released publicly, my question is, well, what hasn't been released? Mm-hmm. It goes back, where was the search? What's being withheld? If it's being withheld, can we challenge the withholding? Is there a way to challenge it under law? And, we're in court right now. There are 6 million records that are yet to be reviewed, as best I can tell.
For JFK?
So it's a good start. And they're for on JFK. Mm-hmm. And I agree that the willingness to declassify information is good. Does it necessarily suggest what people think about JFK? I tend to be pretty conservative on the JFK assassination. I'm old-fashioned. I think a commie murdered him, and maybe our government could have stopped it, but it wouldn't be surprising if it was one of many things they were running and they didn't understand what the heck was about to happen. Who knows? But the point being, now we have more information about that. And it's, when a president gets killed, the American people want to know everything the government knew about what happened. So it's good. It is good. The failure to release the information about Epstein, though, it's typical Justice Department and FBI arrogance. It really is. And I wonder who's running the show.
Can you please unpack that? I know we're on the last question here, but can you unpack that? What do you mean, who's running the show?
Well, when a political appointee, in my experience, sometimes wants to do something that's the right thing, you can count on 1,000 voices in an agency saying you can't do that. And there are all sorts of reasons and excuses. Well, they'll do it to you, or if you release this, you'll have to release that, or they come up with all sorts of consequences that are fanciful in nature that will happen if you release the information. Like in the case of Epstein, they start screaming about child pornography as a way to distract from the other issues that we have questions about. What does child pornography have to do with how Epstein died? I mean, was there child pornography in his jail cell? Of course not. Come on.
Yeah.
And so that's what's happening, is that, we've got to have some aggressive leadership in both agencies to release this information, and again, releasing information is no It's only one part of what they have to do. In the case of the Justice Department and the FBI, as you point out, we want actual investigations, and if there's evidence of a crime, prosecutions.
Yes. It's only the first step. But it's why I viewed it as what they did with JFK as imperfect, but a pressure release valve. It's a start, right? Like it begins the restoration of trust, which I've seen, certainly in our audience, at the beginning steps of that, which is good. It is what they promised to do. So good. Final question for you, Tom. Have you FOIA'd the CIA for these records?
I'm sure we have. I mean, knowing Judicial Watch, we've FOIA'd it. I don't think we've sued about it yet. But that was on my list to kind of look into. What does the CIA have on Epstein?
Yeah.
My joke is, Benny, we're investigating everything. We're investigating everything about everything. So you can be sure that we're on it.
Okay.
I'm willing to bet we've got a FOIA about ripe for a lawsuit if my past experience is correct.
With the CIA, because we've had some experts. We've had some experts on, and yesterday there was a CIA agent on saying you're looking in the wrong place. The CIA is where all these documents actually are. And so,
I mean, the CIA might have records. You had some CIA communications previously disclosed. I mean, you had an Obama lawyer after she was in the White House meeting repeatedly with Epstein after she left the White House. There's all sorts of interesting material we'll want to get access to.
Speaking of access, here we have the president live inside of the White House for his cabinet meeting. Tom, we're going to let you go. Everybody follow Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch. Tom has millions of followers on X. You can find him at Tom Fitton. And here is the president of the United States. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Particular, because of what she's gone through this last few days, done an incredible job. As you know, Christy, I'm going to ask you to say a few words about Texas. The first person there was the first person I saw on television was you, actually. And you've worked great with the governor, who's terrific. And you might want to tell a little bit about the trials and tribulations, but we appreciate the job that you and everybody have done. You had done an incredible job. As you know, Christy,
better audio.
I'm going to ask you to say a few words about Texas. The first person there was the first person I saw on television was you, actually. And you've worked great with the governor, who's terrific. And you might want to tell a little bit about the trials and tribulations, but we appreciate the job that you and everybody have done. You had people there as fast as anybody's ever seen. So I really appreciate it. We all do. And maybe you could say a few words.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you for your leadership. Texas is strong, and the people of Texas are incredibly strong. They've gone through something that is absolutely horrific, and it is heartbreaking to watch these families suffer the way that they are. As soon as this flash flooding event happened, the governor has activated his emergency responders. Nim Kidd is his emergency management director, who is incredible, and has immediately worked with the local first responders to get help to individuals and get them evacuated, put requests into me. We deployed, sir, right away, as you know, because you and I were talking a lot during this time, the Coast Guard. We also had some assets out of Customs and Border Protection. Our BORTAC teams went in and helped with rescues and clearing debris so that we could get roads open and people get the help that they need. I think when I got there the most, sir, that day, as soon as I arrived on site, was getting a briefing from all the emergency responders, was just how unified they were in focusing on the fact that we're there to save lives. They were there to rescue people, find people who were still alive, and to reunify them with their family members. We as a federal government don't manage these disasters. The state does. We come in and support them. And that's exactly what we did here in this situation. FEMA went to an enhanced level immediately. But as soon as you signed the major disaster declaration, we were able to get them resources and dollars right away, just like you envisioned through state block grants to help them with cleanup. And we're still there in presence, and FEMA's been deployed, and we're cutting through the paperwork of the old FEMA, streamlining it much like your vision. how FEMA should operate, and it's been a much better response to help these families get through this terrible situation. We still are looking for people. We're still looking for a lot of little girls and other family members that were camping along that river, and they will continue until they find every single person, and we will continue to help them and assist in that. I was surprised when I got there at the camp that day, right after this happened, the parents that were there, the parents that were looking for their children and picking up their daughter's stuffed animals out of the mud and finding their daughter's shoe that might be laying in the cabin, and just hugging and comforting people matters a lot. I'm extremely grateful for God's hand in that whole situation, because hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were saved. And this is a time for all of us in this country to remember that we were created to serve each other. God created us to take care of each other. And that when we do that, we are happier, we are more fulfilled, and we can walk alongside people on their worst day and help them get through it and come out the other side, knowing that we can continue to live a life that God has purposed for us. So they're grateful for you. Several times the day after the flooding, you and Melania were on the phone with me, and I want to thank you for that. That meant the world. I was able to tell many of those folks that I had been visiting with you, and that you had said, whatever they need, Christy, let's deploy it and get it down there and be helpful. And on Sunday, when the families were waiting at a church to identify their children's bodies, Franklin Graham and I called in and prayed with the families and read some scripture with them and their children's bodies. Franklin Graham and I called in and prayed with the families and read some scripture with them. And he was incredible in making himself available to that as well. We'll be back down there in a couple of days and continue to do all we can. But this is an unprecedented event. It really is. There's been tragedies like this around the country, but everyone is unique in different situations. And, the response the federal government had supporting the state through this, I'm proud of the people that stepped up and immediately came. The Coast Guard, when they came in, they had a difficult time even getting the aircraft in and landed. They had to try several times in the weather to get it in and deploy. And I think we've heard about, our one Coast Guard member that was responsible for saving over 165 people, but that entire crew did incredible work. And all the first responders there did incredible work. And I know people are getting tired now, but they're getting reinforcements and volunteers are showing up. And I just want to commend the governor and his team for being the leaders. And they're so thankful that you're letting them make the decisions and manage the response like it should be. And then us supporting them with the resources of the federal government. We've already deployed dollars to the state, much like the block grants that you've talked about. Right. So they're grateful for that, sir.
There's never been a wave like this outside of the breaking of a dam. Because this was almost a wave that ended up being 30 feet high, more actually. Now with the dam, you can understand it, but this approached almost with that speed. When you see a dam break, it's not a pretty sight. It wipes out everything. And this is the kind of thing that built up so fast. And it's happened 2 or 3 times before over the years, but not to this extent. But tell them when you met, picking up the daughter's clothing. And,
I had walked through the cabin where all the little girls died. And I had kind of fallen apart in there, but I walked out of the cabin and a gentleman was standing there and he said, that man over there needs a hug. And so I walked over to him and I hugged him and I said, do you work here? And he said, no, my little girl was in that cabin. And he said, and I just found her best friend about an hour and a half ago. She had passed away. And he just fell apart. And so then we just hugged and talked for probably an hour about that. But then there was the grandpa was there looking for his granddaughter as well. There was a dad there of one of the counselors. The counselor was alive, but she was dealing with the fact that she had hung on to some of these girls and was trying to keep them out of the flood waters and had gotten hit by something and had lost two of the girls and wasn't able to hang on to them and was going to live the rest of her life thinking about that moment when she wasn't able to hang on to these girls. But these parents were picking up their kids' belongings out of the mud and throughout the camp and putting them in bags. And then one of the dads said, I knew 50 of these girls here. So I knew that was her dress and my daughter's friend's dress. So he was picking it up and putting it in a bag to return to her parents. And so it was and then the director was there comforting everybody who had lost his father the night before too. And he was still there trying to facilitate all of these parents grieving their children and find them. So the strength of people is incredible. One of the things that I asked there today that day was that they all have escorts or counselors when parents come in. So from that point, that when they came into the camp, that they have somebody with them when they're going and looking for their children's belongings or looking for their children. And so very emotional, but also just so tragic.
The relationship with Texas and the governor has been obviously very good for years with me, but the relationship with Texas and their first responders and us with our first responders and lots of other people. And we brought in a lot of helicopters from all over. And we had a lot of helicopters. It was actually dangerous, a lot of helicopters up there, but they were real pros and they were responsible for pulling out a lot of people. And we got them there fast. And Texas had some good ones too. But the response has been incredible. And the fact that we got along so well, I don't know, I don't even think that's a political thing, but we got along so well and it was so unified. I think a lot of lives have been saved. That could have been as bad as it was, and you could have lost double or triple. This thing was just really horrible. Well, congratulations on a great job and appreciate it. I know you're going down. I'll be going down on Friday with First Lady. We'll be taking a trip, and we don't want to get in anyone's way because that's what happens. The president goes and everyone's around focused on. I don't want anyone to focus on us, but it's possible they could have somebody saved still. There's a lot of areas. It's a big area, and probably unlikely at this point, but there could be. I mean, they're thinking there could be the possibility, but what a tragic situation. A good job, and we'll see you on Friday, and we'll finish out the day here. I think you've been reading a lot about it's a terrible topic when you talk about financial after this, but we have a big country and we've been doing very well. The tariffs, as you know, are starting to come in at record levels. Tremendous amounts of money are coming in to our country. We never did that before. We're not used to it. We only have tariffs going out. We only adhere to the rules of other nations who charge us tremendous tariffs because we were led by stupid people or people without any business sense. And I'd like to ask God, you could maybe talk a little bit about how well we're doing with regard to the money coming in. And the big money will start coming in on August 1st. I think it was made clear today by the letters that were sent out yesterday and today. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. We will take in about $100 billion in tariff income thus far this year, and that's with the tariffs, the major tariffs not having started till the second quarter. So we could expect that could be well over $300 billion by the end of the year. We don't agree with CBO scoring, but for those who do, the CBO scored tariff income over the next 10 years at 2.8 trillion, which we think is probably low. And sir, under your leadership, we're witnessing.
And they gave us no credit during this last little, the great, big, beautiful bill. I always use the word great. I add that to it because it really is what it is. It's never been anything like it, actually. And I want to thank all the Republicans that voted for it. And I want to, scold the Democrats because they're voting for tax cuts. They're voting for no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and many, many other things far more important than that. Great health care. And frankly, every Democrat should lose their election because it was purely political to vote. They were told not to vote for it. So think of it. We got 218 to 2 And then with the Senate, we had 50-3. Democrats didn't vote at all, not one positive vote, with all of the good things in there. Economic development money, tremendous border money. Now you're loaded up on the border. And I hate so much of it because we had zero come in last month, so I'm not sure how much of it we want to spend. You may think about that. You may actually think about saving a lot of money because the wall's been largely built and it obviously worked, but you may want to think about that. But so I think it's incredible when I watch the Democrats and they have standard lines like they had Russia, Russia, Russia. They had the laptop from hell. It all came from Russia. You know, they make things up and they go with it and they feed it to you people in many cases. And they said, here's a line. And I hear the new line is death. Oh, it's death. Everyone's going to die. There's nothing to do with that. In fact, we're saving our country. Death is from allowing 25 million people into our country, of which 3 or 4 are stone cold, hard criminals. 11,888 are murderers, many of them committing more than one murder. That's death. And the Democrats did that. Joe Biden did that by allowing people to come in here, just totally unchecked, unvetted, open borders. The whole world was dumped into our country from prisons, from gangs, from mental institutions. We had many people walking the streets, walking in areas that we don't know anything about, that came out of insane asylums. They released the insane asylum population into our country. And it's amazing the job that you and Tom Homan are doing, by the way, on that. But we have to get them out, and we have no choice. We have to get them out, and we are getting them out. And so, Pete, you want to tell them about our great military and how well we did with respect to the bombers and the B-2? We had the pilots here 2 days ago, and they were incredible people. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Truly a historic mission, and demonstrated the skill and courage of the United States military. From those B-2 pilots and families that we had a chance to meet, sir, to the fighter pilots, to the refuelers, to the maintainers, to the air defenders who defended the base. What was demonstrated on the world stage was American military might and capability. And it wasn't just Fordo and Esfahan and Natanz that took notice in Iran. It was the rest of the world, that we have a decisive commander-in-chief willing to use these capabilities, which are the best in the world. As the president pointed out, no one else could have done what America did there on that night. And everyone took notice of that. With the one big beautiful bill, sir, we've got 150 billion additional to invest in Golden Dome and all the other weapon systems and stockpiles and shipbuilding priorities of yours. Another month, another historic recruiting bump. It's not just the Army and the Marine Corps anymore. It's the Navy, the Air Force, and the Space Force, all historically ahead of where they've ever been. So historic spirit inside the military. We had a chance to be at NATO, Marco and I, and see how the world responds to us saying it's time for you to shoulder the burden and take the lead for your continent. That only happens with President Trump leading. And we're proud to be a part of what's going on at the border, sir, with now a 4th national defense area where we're helping get to that number 0 and securing the border. But that mission, Operation Midnight Hammer, re-established deterrence. It reversed what happened in Afghanistan. You saw the debacle of what Biden allowed to happen in Afghanistan and what that did to our image. President Trump said, with Operation Midnight Hammer, reestablishing American leadership and deterrence, and we're proud to be a part of it, sir.
And our so-called enemies were watching. They watched every minute of it. They watched. There was very few people that weren't watching, actually, but they watched every minute. It was a perfect military performance, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, if you compare that to the same country, the hostages from years ago, Jimmy Carter, it was unfortunate for Jimmy Carter. He was a nice man, but with the helicopters going down, the sandstorms, the prisoners, they got captured, then the election and the prisoners and Reagan and all the problems. It was nothing but problems. And that was a failure. And ours was not only the pilots. I mean, those machines flew for 37 straight hours. They didn't stop. They went skedaddle. You know the word skedaddle? It means skedaddle. They dropped the bombs and somebody said, skedaddle. Let's get the hell out of here. And every bomb hit its mark and hit it incredibly. And as you know, the Atomic Energy Commission said it's gone. That place is gone. we had a lot of fake reporting, mostly from CNN, where the scammer a writer for CNN, who should be fired, by the way, she was involved with the 51 fake intelligence agents, if you remember that. She did that story, created a story out of it. She created a story out of the laptop from hell, saying it came from Russia, but it actually came from Hunter Biden's bedroom or worse. Just a scammer, and she's still at CNN, which is pretty amazing. But we'll ask you a question about her. But they came up with this concept that maybe the attack wasn't that good. Maybe it, and I saw it happen right after the attack. I saw this person on CNN. I like to watch the enemy. You learn from the enemy. And I watch because you have to know where they're coming from. And I watched her say, Anderson, I'm hearing stories that maybe they didn't hit their target. Maybe it wasn't that good a hit. And they were hearing stories. The next day it was a little more, and the next day a little more. After 3-4 days, she was saying, I don't know. I don't think it was that, except by that time everybody knew it was hit perfectly. The evidence is in the planes. The pilots are the best evidence. But they actually came out of their plane because they were here the other day, and they said, it was so sad. We did such a good job. We flew into very dangerous airspace. I'll never forget, we were in the Situation Room, and they said they have entered Iranian airspace, and everyone took a deep breath because they had more missiles pointed at them, but the equipment is so good. It's stealth, way up in the air, and it was stealth, and they went right through that, and they sort of, by the time they found out they were there, they were already gone. That was the word skedaddle, get the hell out of here. But they were right in the most dangerous airspace in the world, and they took those big, beautiful, very fast. They're unbelievable planes. I mean, they become really beautiful works of art. I always thought they sort of were cool, but now they look better than just cool, don't they? Huh? But they dropped the loads, and literally they would hit. If you look at this table from here to there, they had a half a refrigerator door is the way to best explain it. Take a refrigerator door, average size, cut it in half. That was their target. They hit every single one. Then we had 30 missiles, Tomahawk, shot from submarines 300 miles away. Every one of them hit their target. It was a perfect mission. Then they came back almost 37 hours. Every plane worked perfectly. The mechanics were here too. I said, you got to get the mechanics here. We didn't have any problems. If you remember, they had a lot of problems with the helicopters, but they did fly through a dust storm, which they shouldn't have done. Sometimes you say, let's go back and try it on a nicer day. Dust and sand don't work well with helicopters if you know much about helicopters. But that was a horrible embarrassment to us. Then we had Afghanistan, which I think was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And we would have gotten out. I was the one that got them down. I would have kept Bagram, the big air base, which right now is controlled by China, among the most powerful runways in the world, thick with concrete and steel. Anything could land. And right now, they were 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. I was keeping it. Outside of that, we were leaving, and I would have been out faster than them, but we would have gotten out with strength and dignity. Instead, that was the most botched up mess I've ever seen. They left all that equipment behind. And every year they have a parade running down some third-rate street with the equipment. It's supposed to be Fifth Avenue. It doesn't work. But with all that equipment that they left, they should have taken every ounce of it. I was taking I said every screw, every bolt, every nail you take out of there. And Millie said, I remember one time, so we're better off leaving the equipment. Why? Well, it's cheaper. I said, cheaper? You mean it's cheaper to leave a $150 million airplane rather than flying it into Pakistan or India or someplace, or just flying it straight home? It's cheap. Yes, sir. That's when I knew he was an idiot. Didn't take long to figure that one out. But they left all that equipment, but they left their dignity behind. It was the most embarrassing moment, in my opinion, in the history of our country. Not that we got out. We should have not been there, but that we got out the way we got out, with great embarrassment and death. You had 13 young people. I've gotten to know their families very well, but you had hundreds of people killed that nobody talks about. Yet the other side, many people were killed. Many people are walking around with no legs, no arms from that whole thing. They left from the wrong airport. They should have left from Bagram, because Bagram was a big base with hundreds of miles of fencing and territory around it. Nobody would be able to get near it.
and they left. So we've done a great job, and I think people are really starting to see it. They're starting to appreciate it. Pete's done fantastically. That mission was a work of art, and I have spoken to some of our perceived, I don't know if they're enemies, but they're perceived as being potential enemies. And they essentially said the same thing. Very impressive. There wasn't a thing that we didn't lose an engine. We didn't lose it. Just, they landed and they were cheered. But the sad thing was they were cheered. And one of the pilots said, we were a little concerned because when we got out, we were told that on television, they were reporting that we may have missed our targets. Sir, we hit every target. That's what I do for a living. We hit every target. In fact, when the bombs hit, a yellow haze came over the horizon that I've never seen before. It just lit up the whole horizon, brighter than the sun. It was like looking into the sun. He goes, we hit our target, because you know what that was exploding. And but they were a little downbeat because they listened to that fake CNN reporting and the fake New York Times. They worked together to try and say that it wasn't perfect. They couldn't say they missed. All they could say is maybe it wasn't perfect. And you ought to fire that reporter immediately. You should fire her. Real fake. And so I just want to congratulate those pilots. And a lot of people don't like bringing things like that up. I do. I always like confronting, because otherwise the public doesn't know that you're a bunch of crooked people. But they know, they've learned, and the media has to straighten out their act. The media is down to 17% approval. You got to do a little better than that. It's important for the country that you do better. I think they ought to make a lot of changes. I think changes are going to be made to the media, but it's hard to have a really successful country if you have a corrupt media, and we really have a corrupt media. And nobody really knows why. I mean, why would you want to have open borders and criminals pouring into our country? Why would you want to have men playing in women's sports, transgender for everyone? You'll have to figure that out. But some of you don't. I mean, I'm looking at some people, they love the country, but I look at other people and they can't. But we're really proud of our military. It was, and the people that maybe don't like us or want to play games with us, because I think that had you not had the situation in Afghanistan, I don't think Putin would have gone in. I think when Putin looked at how stupid and incompetent that operation was, he said, wow, this might be a chance. And we're dealing with him now too. We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week. And I'm not happy with Putin. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Yes, sir. You just said you're not happy with Vladimir Putin. Is there anything that you plan to do to act on that feeling of unhappiness?
Well, I wouldn't be telling you. Don't we want to have a little surprise? One of the things we did with the attack is that, and you asked that question. I didn't mean to be rude, but I'm in a rude because I'm looking at some of these crooked people up here. So I'm rude, but your question was asked very nicely. But one of the things we did is we went over every fact. We wanted to get every fact straight. We wanted to have the distance straight, the number of pilots straight. Everything had to be correct, because this was a very important mission. If we failed on this mission, it was beyond the war that, obviously we had with Iran and Israel. A lot of hatred, a lot of years and years of hatred, centuries of hatred. People have never seen anything like it. So we wanted to be correct with all our facts. So, what I was doing is just asking, it would be great if the media would be correct with their facts. That's all we ask for. So go ahead. So finish it up.
Oh, yes. Just returning back to Russia, if there's anything that you would signal about your displeasure with them.
Well, look, I'm very unhappy with them. There's no reason for this. It's turned out to be tougher, but it's only tougher. And I will say the Ukrainians were brave, but we gave them the best equipment ever made. We gave them the anti-tank busters that knocked out tanks. I mean, you just aim them in the direction of the tank and the tank is gone. We gave them missiles that
latest and the greatest. They were able to shoot down a lot of things that would have normally wiped out, probably would have been a very quick war. It would have been a war that lasted 3-4 days, but they had the benefit of unbelievable equipment. And Europe gave them too. We gave them far more because Biden shouldn't have done that. He should have equalized. We should have given him the same, or we should have given actually less than Europe. It affects Europe much more than us, but we're in there for over $300 billion. Europe's in there for over 100 billion, but still, Europe gave a lot. And I will say this, the Ukrainians, whether you think it's unfair that we gave all that money or not, they were very brave because somebody had to operate that stuff. And a lot of people I know wouldn't be operating it. They wouldn't have the courage to do it. So they fought very bravely, but we gave them the best equipment in the world. We make the best military equipment by far. There's nobody close. You look at other equipment from other countries, it's not even close. That's why everybody wants to buy our equipment. And that's why we're going to step up these contractors now that make it, and they're brilliant, but they make it too slowly. And we have to step them up, Pete, and let them make it at a much higher rate. Unfortunately, we have to do that. But if you look at our Patriots, if you look at our Tomahawks, if you look at our, what we do with tanks is you wouldn't want to be driving a tank. You would feel nice and secure, but they are javelins, they're called. And I gave them the javelins. Remember, they said Trump gave the javelins and Obama gave them sheets, right? They called Obama at that time. Barack Hussein Obama, if you haven't heard, did a terrible job. But that was a war that should have never happened, and a lot of people are dying, and it should end. And I don't know, we get a lot of bullshit thrown at us by Putin. For you want to know the truth, he's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Do you want to sanction him? Lindsey Graham has a sanctions bill on Russia. Do you want him to move?
I'm looking at it. Yeah, no, I'm looking. The Senate is passing and passed a very, very tough sanctions. But yeah, I'm looking at it.
Did you sign that?
It's an optional bill. It's totally at my option. They passed it totally at my option, and to terminate totally at my option. And I'm looking at it very strongly.
Yesterday, you said
Go ahead, please.
The Council of Economic Advisors released a new report saying that imported goods have actually decreased in price from December through March. Well, my question is,
with the tariffs.
Well, the Fed chairman keeps saying that tariffs are going to cause price increases.
Are
the prices just not
chairman
passed
of the
through
Fed?
yet? Yes, exactly.
You do a better job than him.
Are the prices just not passed through yet?
No, I think what's happening is everything's evening out. When we charge, see what people don't understand, the other countries have been charged, almost every country charges us tariffs. We had deficits with everybody for years, for decades. And we were like this big monolith that made bad deals with everybody. We rebuilt South Korea, we stayed there. It's okay, we rebuilt it and we stayed there. And they pay us very little for the military. I got them to pay billions of dollars, and Biden then canceled it when he came in. I said to South Korea, as an example, we give you free military, essentially, very little. And I think you should pay us $10 billion a year. And they went crazy. But they agreed to 3. So I got 3 with a phone call. And I was satisfied. I said, but next year we have to talk. And then we had a rigged election, and we never got to talk. And you know what Biden did? They probably went to him and they said, listen, Trump treated us terribly and we shouldn't be paying anything. And he cut it down to nothing. So that's what happens. It's ridiculous. That's the other thing. We're talking to countries about contributing to the military, not only just paying more in NATO, but contributing. We have 45,000 soldiers in South Korea. We have 45,000 soldiers in Germany, 52,000 actually. And that's a huge economic development for them. That's tremendous amount. That's like having a city. It's tremendous money for them, and it's a tremendous loss for us. So we're talking, in a very nice way, we're talking to them about it. It's very unfair. We supply the militaries to many very successful countries. I mean, South Korea is making a lot of money, and they're very good. They're very good, but, they should be paying for their own military.
President Trump, I'll ask you a question about Jerome Powell as well. And then the question to the Attorney General. Jerome Powell, and then I have a question for the Attorney General. Jerome Powell, who you've been pressuring to lower interest rates, he's facing accusations of lying to Congress, which is a potential crime about the
Well, then he
opulent.
should resign immediately. We should get somebody in there that's going to lower interest rates.
Do you want congressional
Why don't you
Republicans to
call
look
for
into
his resignation?
Do you want congressional Republicans to investigate and
It's
pursue
okay
and
with
punish?
me. I think he's terrible. I think, look, we're paying, I call him too late. TOO, too late, like Too Tall Jones for the Dallas Cowboys, right? Too late. He's always late. But he wasn't late with Biden before the election. He was cutting him like crazy. It didn't help too much, did it? But he was cutting him like crazy before the election with Kamala and Biden. He was trying to get them in, I guess. I don't know. He was recommended by somebody that worked for me. I like you better.
If I could ask the Attorney General a question too.
Sure.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of Saturday?
Yeah, sure. If
Pam, could I just interrupt for
Sure.
1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Mr. President, on the tariffs again, on August 1st, you've said it is the deadline. What incentives do countries have to negotiate? It seems that deadline keeps moving. It was April 2nd now.
We didn't move, no. It's always been August 1st. That's what we're paying. A statement was put out today, and I put it out just to make it clear. It wasn't a change. It was August 1st. We don't change very much. You know, every time we put out a statement, they say he made a change. I didn't make a change. Clarification, maybe. No, August 1st they pay, and everybody pays. Everybody has to pay, and the incentive is that they have the right to deal in the United States. If they don't want to, they don't have to pay, and they don't have to deal here. But if they want to buy and make a lot of money and sell in the United States, they have to do that. You know, if you go back and look at some of the good presidents, our country was the wealthiest, proportionately the wealthiest, from 1870 to 1913. It was an all-tariff country. We didn't have income tax. That came in in 1913. We had tariffs, and we had so much money we didn't know what to do with it. We had, we had a couple of presidents that were very, very strong. McKinley, I guess, more than anybody, but he was the tariff king. But he was very, very strong. It's sort of sad. He made a fortune for this country, became very rich, and then Teddy Roosevelt went out and vice president, and he spent the money. And they said Roosevelt was a great president. And let's say he was a great president, but the money was paid by McKinley with tariffs. Tariffs are charged by other countries at levels that are ridiculous. And I call those other countries to say, and every one of them is willing to give us everything now, by the way, just so you know. Sir, we'll charge you no tariffs, nothing. We'll give you everything. We'll give you access to our markets. We'll give you everything. Is that a correct statement, Scott?
Yes, sir.
Howard, would you say that's a correct statement?
Exactly correct.
It's like they just don't, because they're very spoiled, because for years they ripped us off and we didn't have a president that understood it, or Secretary of Treasury or Secretary of a lot of different secretaries are involved, but certainly Commerce Secretary was, not doing their job. I don't know about Kelly, she's small business. We'll keep it that way, okay? Her small business is bigger than almost all big businesses when you add it all up. But no, they are very respectful of our country. But the incentive is that they have the right to do business with us. Without that, they don't have the right to do business. And that would be okay too.
Will there be a flurry of deals? Will we hear in the next 24 hours? Will we hear a flurry of deals?
Yeah, we have a lot of them going out, but the deals are mostly my deal to them. We're picking a number that's low. We don't want to hurt them, and fair. We're picking a number that's lower than, in most cases, lower than what they charged us. But it's amazing when you've paid all this money for years and they get one president that's a little bit different and a little tougher on this subject, and they're willing to drop everything they've been charging us for years and years. I mean, we have countries going, we will have you don't have to pay any tariff to come in and do business. They're giving us total access to their countries. They gave us no access to the country. They say, well, you cannot go into our country. Okay, good. Now we will give you total access and you don't have to pay any tariffs. But please don't charge us tariffs. And we don't like that deal. So the letters I send out we have made some deals. We can make a lot more deals. It's just too time consuming. It just makes it more complicated. And we can do things over the years too. We're not hard line, but it's about time the United States of America started collecting money from countries that were ripping us off and laughing behind our back at how stupid we were. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. President, on the tariff issue, so you've talked about India coming, but then a couple days ago, you issued a new tariff threat to members of the BRICS countries if they aligned with anti-American policies.
10% charge.
That would be India, Brazil, Russia,
They have
South
to pay
Africa.
10% if they're in BRICS. Because
Right.
BRICS was set up to hurt us. BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard. And that's okay if they want to play that game, but I can play that game too. So anybody that's in BRICS is getting a 10% charge.
Is that immediate, sir? Or is
Yeah,
that
pretty soon.
if they engage in some behavior?
Well, if they're a member of BRICS, they're going to have to pay 10% tariff just for that one thing. And they won't be a member long. I thought BRICS was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard at any time. If you have a smart president, you will never lose the standard. If you have a stupid president like the last one, you would lose the standard. You wouldn't have the dollar as you. And if we lost the world standard dollar, that would be like losing a war, a major world war. We would not be the same country any longer. We're not going to let that happen. The dollar, you ever hear the expression, dollar is king? The dollar is king. We're going to keep it that way, okay? And I'm just saying, if people want to challenge it, they can, but they're going to have to pay a big price. And I don't think any of them are willing to pay that price.
But does that jeopardize?
Thank you, Mr. President. Are you optimistic about reaching a tariff deal with the European Union soon?
Well, the European Union has been speaking to us, Ursula and the whole group, and they've been very nice. They treated us very badly until recently. Now they're treating us very nicely. It's like a different world, actually. They've treated us very badly. They were among the toughest to deal with. Actually, in many respects, they were much worse than China. Look at what they do to our companies. They sue Apple. They sue Google. 17 billion they got from Apple on a lawsuit that they didn't have a case. They have, judges that are European Union judges. and they take so much money away from our country in terms of that, in terms of other things that they do. They're very tough, but now they're being very nice to us, and we'll see what happens. We're probably 2 days off from sending them a letter. We are talking to them. I just want you to know, a letter means a deal. You know, a lot of people said, we got 200 countries. We can't meet with 200 countries. We have a few trusted people that know what they're doing, that are doing a good job, but you can't do it. You have to do it in a more general way, but it's a very good way. It's a better way. It's a more powerful way. And we sent them a letter. You read the letter. I think it was well crafted. And mostly it's just a little number in there. You'll pay 25%, 35%. We have some at 60, 70. Those are ones with massive, where we have massive trade deficits because they've treated us very badly. But I would say in every case, I'm treating them better than they treated us over the years. Don't you agree with that? I do. I could have done much. I could have been much harsher. I don't want to do that. We want to have relationships, but in every case, they treated us far worse than I'm treating them. I'm treating them very good. I could go higher with the tariffs, but I don't want to hurt them. That's why when you just read it, you come up with the number. It's so incredible that prices are actually going down. Just so you know, when I got in, everyone said, "Oh, eggs are going through the roof." That was I was in for about 4 days, and they started screaming at me about eggs. They said, "That's Biden's problem." I didn't know about eggs, but eggs went up about 5 times. You did a fantastic job, and we ended up shortly getting. In fact, for Easter, they said, "Go out and buy plastic eggs. You can't use real eggs." Well, we bought 200,000 eggs for the White House for the Easter egg hunt that we have at the White House, and there were eggs. We had the price down, and now the price is lower than it was before. We did a good job with eggs, but we did a good job with groceries. Our prices are down in this country. A big part of it's oil. The oil, you had a couple of places last week. You had $1.99 for oil, for gasoline. Nobody thought they'd see that. I want to get it lower if I can, but we've done a good job. You've done a very good job. Do you want to say a couple of words about that, you and Chris, about what's happening with energy?
Well, absolutely, but I would say on the pricing side, President Trump, the fact that you've endorsed and supported a policy of energy dominance, that sends a signal to the market that we're going to have more supply. You talked during the campaign about inflation being a country buster. You've broken the back of inflation in 6 months, among all the other things you've accomplished.
We have no inflation.
And we've got, and then heading into the 4th of July, these were the lowest gas prices at the pump in 4 years. And again, for Americans, this is like hundreds of billions of dollars that stay in their pockets because we lower the price of gas at the pump. But when we lower the price of energy, it lowers the price of food. It lowers the price of the clothes you wear.
It's the biggest thing.
It's the biggest thing.
It's like a big tax cut. When you get energy down, every 50 cents is like a massive tax cut, and we've gotten it down much below that. You know, we had great energy, great low prices, everything else. When the election turned over, I'm trying to be nice about it. It turned over, shockingly, but nevertheless, it happened. Energy started going up, and it went up really bad, and then he went back to the Trump policy. The problem was they didn't know how to do that, and he lost it. He lost that sucker. That big sucker was out of control, and his energy prices went way up, and that's what caused it. But it was also stupid spending. They spent money like they used to use the term drunken sailors, but I won't use that term. Although it is very descriptive, I won't use that term. I refuse to use it. But they spent money at levels that nobody had ever seen before, and trillions and trillions of dollars wasted on the Green New Scam. Greatest scam in the history of our country, other than maybe Russia, that might have been. But the Green New Scam was the single greatest scam in the history of our country and continues to be, but it's weakened badly. It's hobbling along because people are they're finally getting it. But they spent trillions of dollars on the Green New Scam, getting nothing for it. Devised by a couple of young people that weren't even good college students, you know? Not even good students. Check out their marks. Yeah.
No,
not for CNN.
Not for CNN.
Go ahead.
In the last jobs report, Mr. President, in the last jobs report, the manufacturing jobs actually lost 7,000 jobs. When will the investments that you've been talking about
have an effect
Well,
on
they're building the plants now. About 7 have started. We're going to have hundreds started within a short period of time. Lee Zeldin, who may be the most important man in this room, I'm sorry, but he's the one that gets the permits, whereas he's the one that has to get the permits for the plants and the factories, and permits that used to take 5 years, he's getting in record-setting times. AI, we're leading China a lot in AI, and if we go with this, I'm allowing the plants to build their own electric. I'm allowing them to become an electric utility, so they can produce their own electricity, because we need double to be successful with AI, which is the biggest thing now. We need double the electricity that we have, which is hard to believe. We need even more than that. And they're building plants with their own electricity substations. They don't have to use the grid. And anything they build extra, they're putting into the grid. So we're supplying the grid with brand new electric sources. And it's funny, when they came to see me, they never even asked for that. I told them about it. The reason they didn't, they thought that was an impossibility. You're not allowed to build your own electric. These are massive investments that are being made in building electricity for their plants. And they're going to have, I think, Doug, a lot of electricity left over. And that electricity is going to be passed into the grid and give us no more, like you look at California, they have blackouts and brownouts every week. They're totally out of control. They have a really incompetent governor. Where's Chris? Is he here? Do you want to speak to the subject?
Yeah, I think a huge thing in the one big beautiful bill, Mr. President, because of your leadership, is the ending of these subsidies, as you call them, the Green New Scam. That saves our country $500 billion over the next 10 years. But American taxpayers were paying twice. They're paying that money, $500 billion in the subsidies, and they were paying more expensive electricity price. If you subsidize something, you should at least lower the cost of it. But in this case, we were subsidizing something and paying more for it. So the one big beautiful bill had two huge things: ending wasteful spending. Wind, solar, and batteries combined are 3% of U.S. total primary energy. 3% for $1 trillion, another $500 billion coming. That's just not a good investment, hurting our businesses, hurting our consumers. And the one big beautiful bill also unshackled oil, gas, and coal development in the United States, onshore and offshore. Secretary Burgum has been working tirelessly on how, by getting the government out of the way, private businesses will develop more resources in the United States, lowering costs for American consumers and making much better leverage for the United States to help our allies abroad and reduce the power of our adversaries abroad. So just a huge win on the energy front all around, and I thank you for your leadership.
We're setting records now on energy, and there'll be nothing compared to what there'll be in about a year from now. But we're setting records, and wind is a very expensive form of energy. It's very bad for your beautiful surroundings, the plains and the valleys, and the birds are dying all over the place. The whole thing is a disaster. They're almost exclusively made in China. Not that I have anything against China, because I don't have a great relationship with President Xi, but I asked him, how many wind farms do you have? He makes them, but they don't have a lot of wind farms, I'll tell you, very, very few. And wind is tremendously expensive and is very ugly. And if you own a house that's inside of a windmill, your house is worth less than half. And you hear noises. And interestingly, in New England, you probably read, where for 50 years they had 2 wells washed up, 50 years. And last summer, they had 14 washed up. Now, I'm not saying that's the wind farm that was built, but maybe it is, right? Probably is. It's tremendously expensive, and it can only be done with subsidy. I know a man that's in that business, and one of the biggest in the world actually runs a company that builds these stupid windmills. And he said, I hate the business because it's the only energy where you need subsidy. He said, energy shouldn't need subsidy. You should make money with energy. So wind. The other one is the solar, those big solar fields. They're taking our farmland. Our farmers are like mortified by it. They hate it. It's very, very inefficient and very ugly too. Probably better than a windmill, but you go around and you see all these things that are 3 miles long by 3 miles wide. And you say, what the hell is that? And it's a lot of plastic from China. It's plastic, black plastic from China. Now, we want to be smart. We're going with, look, China right now is building 58
coal-fired plants, 58 big ones. They have 62 on the books to build. We've reintroduced clean, beautiful coal, because you can do a lot with coal now. Clean, beautiful coal, and natural gas, and all of the other things that we have. But we don't want wind, and we don't want solar, because they're a blight on our country. They hurt our country very badly, and smart countries don't use it. Solar sounds good, I will say, and I like, on occasion you'll see a roof which is made out of solar brick, but it's a smaller use. We need the kind of thing that's going to fire up our plants, and it's not going to be wind, that's very intermittent, as you probably know. But they've spent a fortune. They've spent trillions of dollars on this stuff. And I'll just give you one other story. A friend of mine is a very successful guy. He went back to see his mother in Minnesota. He hadn't seen her in a long time. And he wasn't back for 10 years, which isn't a nice story. I mean, you don't see your mother for 10 years. She's got some difficulties, which I know the guy, he does have some difficulties. He's very successful, but probably not the nicest person. It was actually longer than 10 years, but he went back and he told me he wanted to go and look at the valley. There's a valley in Minnesota that he thought was so beautiful. And I hadn't seen it in a long time. He's driving along the road. He said, I'll use the word gosh. Oh my gosh. He said, he said, it looked like a junkyard. You had 159 windmills. They were all over the place. Some were old, some were newer, different companies, different shapes, different sizes, different colors. Many of them were terminated meaning closed. You can't take them down because the environmentalists don't let you bury the blades because they're made out of a fiber they say is bad for the earth. So they want you to put them up, but they don't let you take them down. But many of them were turned off. He said it looked like a junkyard. Go to Palm Springs, California, and take a look at that pile of junk. You go into a wealthy neighborhood. Before you get there, you have to ride through hundreds of windmills most of them are turned off. They're rotting, they're rusting, they're 30 years old, 20 years old, and they have a very short life. Those windmills have a very short life, especially the ones that are in the nice salty Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean, where the salt just gets onto that steel and decimates it. No, it's a horrible, horrible thing for our country. And I speak out. It would be nice to say wind, because it sounds so good, doesn't it, Doug? Wind. But it's not. It's these ugly machines, and they're all made. You got to see. Some are a little taller, a little shorter. They're made by different companies. They have different stocks. They have different blades. They have different everything. It is so horrible. And if you look at smart countries, they don't use it. Smart countries don't use it. And we're now a smart country. We're a brilliant country. We're not smart. We're brilliant now. We're going to be a brilliant country. We have to be, because we have to catch up for some really stupid people that did a bad job. Yes, Brian?
Yes, Mr. President, I've got a quick comments and feedback as a native Texan, someone that I grew up bringing my kids to a camp very near the affected camp now. Thank you on behalf of Texas. I've gotten hundreds of messages that want to thank. It's if you're in the cabinet room, you can tell the president and his team on behalf of Texans, thank you so much for the quick response and the loving, the hugs. I saw that you gave. Two quick questions.
I saw a Palestinian senator. His name is Schumer. He's a great Palestinian. No, he's a Palestinian. He's become a Palestinian. He's abandoned the Jews. But I saw him say, it's Trump's fault. Yeah, that's right. It's Trump's fault. He was actually, do you ever see John Lovitz, The Liar? Where he goes, yeah, I went to Harvard. That's right. This was Schumer. He goes, yeah, it's Trump's fault. That's right. It's Trump. I actually saw that stupid guy try and blame it on me. And I said, man, that's a tough one to take. But his career is limited because I hear AOC is going to beat him. And she's no bargain either, by the way. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying that's an example of America First team effort to get this country back. So that's what America First looks like for the viewers watching us at home. My two questions. Looks like we have a rogue judge, an Obama-backed rogue judge that is attempting to block the funding to Planned Parenthood, which the big, beautiful bill cuts off the funding to Planned Parenthood. Any plans to challenge that?
Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yes, we're on it. We're on it. And I texted, I believe, I talked to yesterday Secretary Lutnick, and Secretary Besson, I reached out to you to let you know that we were on it in the big, beautiful bill.
Wonderful. And then my
I let her handle that question. You notice? I said, go ahead, handle that question.
Toss it to her. Then my second question was Secretary Rollins. You did an amazing press conference today in front of the Department of Agriculture. You talked about the Farm Act and the need to get China out of our country, owning farmland. For the viewers at home that might have missed that, can you recap what that means to national security to make sure we can grow our own food?
Well, thank you, Brian, sir, if you don't mind. Yes, this morning, Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Noem, and Attorney General Bondi and I had a press conference at the USDA. I just happened to have a chart in case it came up, but obviously the Chinese owning of farmland in our country is a massive national security issue. And for the media, you can see the yellow is where all of the farms have been purchased over the last number of years. And the red is around all of the military bases where that farmland has been purchased. So this is a massive national security issue. The press conference this morning included 3 of our greatest governors as well, Sarah Sanders from Arkansas, Jim Pillen from Nebraska, and Bill Lee from Tennessee. The states have begun taking a leadership role to ban the purchasing of China farmland. Obviously, Congress needs to step up and catch up, and we're going to be working alongside of them as well. We had some of our members, great members of Congress there, but it is time. And I think that this morning was symbolic of many things. The first of this administration working every day to effectuate President Trump's leadership and unequivocal support of America first. But second, just how close we are as a cabinet. I don't know in any other administration that you'd have 4 cabinet members at the USDA on a Tuesday morning when it's about 110 degrees outside with the sun beating down on us talking about, sir, your vision. So I think it was a great day. It was just the start. There's an executive order coming and some other things coming behind that. But protecting America's farms isn't just about protecting our farmers. It's also about national security. So that's what we discussed this morning.
I do want to say that I think we have had a really good relationship with China lately, and we're getting along with them very well. They've been very fair on our trade deal, honestly, and I hope we're going to have a great relationship. It's a big, strong, powerful country. We're more powerful than they are. We have much better military equipment than they do, but we are getting along with them very well. I'm getting along with President Xi very well. We speak often. And with all of that being said, and I understand what you're saying, but I think we're getting along with China very well.
Mr. President, you want to send more weapons to Ukraine, as you said last night. Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We want to put defensive weapons because Putin is not, he's not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. What did you tell me?
I think that's a question for the
Go ahead.
Mr. President, on immigration, the Secretary of the Agriculture Secretary did say this morning that undocumented workers would not be covered by any amnesty of who are working on farms. You had said maybe that the ISA folks won't go after those folks on farms. So which is it?
There's no amnesty. What we're doing is we're getting rid of criminals, but we are doing a work program. Do you want to explain that, please?
Yeah, this morning we talked about, of course, this was a top of mind question. This morning we talked about protecting the farmers and the farmland, but obviously this president's vision of no amnesty, mass deportation continues, but in a strategic way, and then ensuring that our farmers have the labor that they need. Secretary Chavez-DeRimmer has been a leader on this. Obviously, this comes out of the Labor Department, but moving toward automation, ensuring that our farmers have that workforce and moving toward an American workforce. So all of the
We've
above.
got to give the farmers the people they need, but we're not talking amnesty. Laura, do you want to say something about that?
Thank you, Mr. President. On this, thank you, Secretary Rollins, how important this is never to displace the American worker. What the Department of Labor is doing is focusing on what the law entails now, being more modernized, more streamlining to work through the H programs. We're going to have a concierge approach to that, where we have developed a new office to answer the need of our farmers and ranchers and producers, and not to displace the American worker and follow within the law now. And that does not include an amnesty program at all. And we've seen that working, and we'll continue to have that roll out. On the other topics that we somewhat talked about, the jobs numbers, Mr. President, 4 months in a row, we've seen those jobs numbers increase. That's an exciting time for our manufacturers. That was asked earlier. We know it's going to take some time, but through that deregulation process that Lee and I are working on as well, the Department of Labor has rolled out 63 new deregulations that we're going to be moving through. In the first Trump administration, it was successful with over 30. We've just rolled out 63 new ones in order to double down on those manufacturing companies to let them know that we have signaled through this process that we will assist them in getting the workforce that they need. It's an exciting time. That one big, beautiful bill, that was the signal to my former colleagues in Congress to get this done. It's been an important time. I spent time on the ground visiting 7 states in 9 days prior to that bill being passed because it was the most pro-worker piece of legislation that we will ever see really in this country right now. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. That matters to the American worker because we don't want to take their money and give it back. We want them to keep more of their hard-earned dollars in their pockets currently, and that's what they're excited about. And as I move forward with this tariff talks, I heard a company, orthopedic company in Indiana, say to me, for the first time since you have taken office, Mr. President, their increase in their bottom line by 8% since these tariff talks have happened. Not one company has said the president is not doing a good job. These tariff talks are working. They're feeling it on the ground. The media has told a false story because what's happening on the ground is positive, and that's what we're seeing with these job numbers. So I really, through the Department of Labor, to come in behind all the secretaries and build this workforce is going to be key to the American worker. So thank you for what everybody did this last week. The one big beautiful bill is a doubling down of this, and we're going to see these workers start to grow. And that apprenticeship program is going to be working.
That's
we'll
right.
have that
It's gonna
million
be
apprentices across the country.
We, as you know, we're building plants all over the country now, which you weren't building any plants 4 years ago. You weren't building anything. But those plants, when they open up, it's going to be, you'll see numbers like you haven't seen ever. I don't think in history you'll never see numbers like what we're going to see in the very near future. Many of them are building the plants. Some are just starting right now. You know, it's a brand new administration. But, and they wouldn't be here except for 2 things, November 5th, the election, and the tariffs. And frankly, I guess the election was more important because of the tariffs. I mean, another person wouldn't have done this. But they're coming in because of the tariffs. They have to, they're not going to pay 25, 30, 40, 50%, 70, and 100%. And we'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals. We're going to give people about a year and a half to come in. And after that, they're going to be tariffed if they have to bring the pharmaceuticals into the country, the drugs and other things into the country. They're going to be tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%. We'll give them a certain period of time to get their act together. But they were all here. Now they all left. They went to other places because we allowed people that sat in this room allowed it to happen. And I don't allow it to happen. The people in this room don't allow it to happen. So we're going to be announcing pharmaceuticals, chips, and various couple of other things, you know, big ones. We did steel, as you know, they're 50%. We did aluminum, 50%. Lumber just came out.
Aren't you, that's copper.
And we did cars. And now today we're doing copper.
Copper, what would that tariff be on? The sectional tariff?
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
50%.
Any breakthroughs in
See, I'm glad he
Gaza?
didn't question it.
Any
I
breakthroughs?
sort of thought, what would that be? A quick one. I didn't have much time, but he agreed with me. That's why he's ours.
Any breakthroughs on Gaza with the Prime Minister? And there's reports that you're meeting with Netanyahu again tonight. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
I am. He's going to come over again tonight. We're talking about Gaza. It's mostly Gaza right now. It's he's been very unfairly treated. I think what they've done to him in Israel is very unfair, having to do with this trial. You know, he's a wartime prime minister, had an unbelievable outcome, and I think he's been treated very unfairly. But he's coming over later. We're going to be talking about, I would say, almost exclusively Gaza. We got to get that solved. Gaza is a tragic. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And he wants to get it solved, and I want to get it solved. And I think the other side wants to get it solved. Steve, could you talk on that, please?
We're in proximity talks now, and we had 4 issues, and now we're down to 1 after 2 days of proximity talks. So we are hopeful that by the end of this week, we will have an agreement that will bring us into a 60-day ceasefire. 10 live hostages will be released. 9 deceased will be released. We're meeting at the president's direction with all the hostage families to let them know. And we think that this will lead to a lasting peace in Gaza.
And you're doing a good job. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. A lot of hate, it's called long-term hate. But we think we're going to have it solved pretty soon, hopefully with a real solution, a solution that's going to be holding up.
And can I follow up? This is, I think, the first cabinet meeting since Elon Musk has not been a special government employee, not here anymore. He's now saying he's going to create a third political party. Are you worried about the impact that that could have?
No, I think it'll help us. It'll probably help. Third parties have always been good for me. I don't know about Republicans, but for me.
Are you second guessing any of the cuts that Doge made since you
No,
described him as
no.
off the rails
Look,
the other day?
we cut hundreds of billions of dollars with Doge. We could have done it differently. I would have done it differently a little bit maybe, but it was something that we saved a lot of money. You can always second guess. I guess some of the people in this room maybe would have done it slightly differently, and some would have done it exactly the way it was done. But it was dramatic and it was important. And we found a lot of things like billions of dollars given to people for environmental protection, where they had $100 in the account, like in Atlanta, Stacy. And then you had another one with 20 billion here, and 20 billion here, and 2 billion here, and 15 billion. And Lee, you might want to mention just a couple of those things. We really got because of Doge.
At the Trump EPA, the one big beautiful bill was filled with many big beautiful wins for the taxpayer. It delivered a sledgehammer to the Green New scam. Billions of dollars rescinded. So it's a big deal for the American taxpayer who sees money go through pass-throughs that are filled with self-dealing and conflicts of interest. They see unqualified recipients. They see reduced agency oversight, and they want accountability with their tax dollars, and they got it. So in the example of the Stacey Abrams connected NGO, they received $100 in 2023. They got $2 billion in 2024. They had to complete training on how to develop a budget that was put into their grant agreement. They, out of nowhere, started paying a CEO $800,000, a COO $450,000, 22 people making over 150 grand. Out of nowhere, this is tax dollars. So money go through pass-throughs, through other pass-throughs, through other pass-throughs, and we lose oversight over it. And you see that it's going to former Biden officials, it's going to former Obama officials, it's going to Democratic donors. And we're not here saying we want to take money from a left-wing NGO and give it to a right-wing NGO. We want to give it back to the taxpayer. This is about us being good stewards of American tax dollars without any apology or regret. That's why President Trump was elected last November, because there were a whole lot of people who maybe they hadn't voted Republican in a long time. Maybe they didn't even vote for President Trump the first time around in 2016, but they're regretting that vote from 2016, and they were making it right in 2024. So the one big beautiful bill gave us the tools to rescind billions of dollars more. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars that'll get wasted per electric vehicle as an example of this money that was going through it. They gave $50 million to a group called Climate Justice Alliance. They say that climate justice runs through a free Palestine. The Biden EPA gave $50 million to a group that says the climate justice runs through a free Palestine. We say that if you're going to spend $1 in the name of remediating an environmental issue, then spend $1 on remediating an environmental issue. We say that we can protect the environment and grow the economy. We want to help grow more baseload power in this country. So why is it that it took this long for this team to get assembled, to be able to fix the mess that we inherited? But gosh, we love showing up at our jobs every single day, first thing in the morning, because all day long we get things done for the American taxpayer. And Congress did its part last week by passing one big beautiful bill to deliver this accountability and to cut off the Green New scam. So maybe it's a bad day for Stacey Abrams. Maybe it's a bad day for all those well-connected Democrats getting paid off. But you know what? God bless America. Because at the end of the day, President Trump is here, J.D. Vance is here, and the greatest cabinet ever assembled to deliver that much-needed and highly demanded accountability.
Mr. President,
That was a very good answer. And that's from the heart. That's from the heart.
I'm Ukraine. What does U.S. intelligence believe, and what do you believe about the use of chemical weapons? And would you agree that that's the case for it?
Well, ask John maybe to discuss it if you'd like, John.
Well, Mr. President, obviously, chemical weapons, if it's documented and its use, it's illegal. It's against all international laws of armed conflict and treaties. And obviously, I can't share in this room with this audience the intelligence that I can share with you privately, but obviously, you're not going to stand or allow for any violations of international law by anyone.
That's right. Thank you. Could I ask Sean to Department of Transportation, Sean Duffy, former great congressman, very popular, decided to go out and make a couple of bucks. He made a lot. And he got bored with that, though. He likes serving people better, the people. And could I ask you to just discuss a very important subject to me, and that's the modernization of our equipment at airports so that planes aren't crashing into each other and bad things don't happen. It should have been done many years ago. We were going to do it, and then the election precluded that, unfortunately, but we're doing it now. Could you tell them where we are?
Yeah, if I can start with Newark. You guys all covered what happened in Newark. We had outages for a couple of 30-second outages a couple months ago. We have, in 2 months, Mr. President, it's historic speed, laid new fiber lines for communication and tested those in the next month. So those new lines for the Philly Tracon that controls the Newark airspace, they're up and running. Lightning fast speed. June was the most on-time June ever in the history of Newark for air travel. So that's going incredibly well. By the way, we shouldn't have dealt with this because Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg had moved the center from New York to Philadelphia. They didn't test the lines. They didn't do the work, which is what brought us all these problems. But in the big beautiful bill, we got $12.5 billion. This is a historic investment in air traffic control. And so what the money is going to allow us to do is move from copper to fiber all over the country. So new copper lines. We think we can do that in a year and a half to 2 years. We have radar that dates back to the 1950s, some of it from the 60s and 70s. We get brand new radar across the country as well. We have some infrastructure money to build TRACONs and centers, the en route centers that control the traffic across the country. So this is a massive new start to rebuild air traffic control. And again, this is dilapidated. Americans think that their government takes care of them and makes the investments that are necessary to make the country work. And for 30, 40 years, the investments weren't made. And so under your leadership and direction, we are making those investments. And per your direction, right now, we are interviewing what we could call a general contractor or an integrator. One company to manage. It's a massive project. The FAA is not qualified to manage this kind of a project. So we are now going through the process of finding who that one company will be to manage the whole project. We'll interview those companies together and make that selection. So we'll write one big, beautiful check to one beautiful company that'll be responsible for this whole build. But if I just make one last point, this is not enough money. We're going to need more. But this is a massive new start. The biggest investment. We'll need some more money on top of it, but a great start from the big, beautiful.
Just starter. It was very important to us. And just to cover that, there have been accidents, and my pilots, I would often hear them say, "Oh, good," and they would use a different system, a different country to land in New York. They'd use the radar and other things from a different country. I said, "What's that?" He says, "Oh, our system is so bad." And I knew that we were all set to start. And Boot at Edge came in, and what they did was so crazy because they hooked it copper into fiber, into steel, they had all different systems. They had hundreds and hundreds of contractors, different contractors for different airports. They spent billions of dollars, and they made the system worse because you can't hook copper into fiber. It doesn't work that way. You just can't do it. It's not doable, but they tried to do it. Didn't work out too well. And in the end, it was just a complete disaster. We want to have one great company. Now, Raytheon's going to bid, IBM's going to bid. We have 5 or 6 bidders that really are good and do this stuff. And we want one, I tell, because I know about overruns, I look at the railroad out in California, headed up by one of the worst governors in our country, who I used to get along with actually, but he's just, you know, when you lose 25,000 houses and you would have had your cities burned down. If we didn't step in, Los Angeles would have been burned to the ground. But you look at that, and I said, I really know how to build. And you got to have one guy, one contractor, one great one, whether it's IBM or Raytheon is good, but you have 4 or 5 that are really, really great, and they're all bidding against each other. But you don't want to have one doing the wire and one doing the digging and one doing the demolition and then they're all saying they all blame each other because they're saying they were late and therefore you have to pay me millions of dollars more money. I know the system so well, and we're going to have a great company do the whole thing. We're going to get a fantastic price. Maybe we'll get them, they're very big and very strong, and maybe we'll get them to make a contribution toward getting it done at the right price. But we're going to have a great system. When we finish, we will have the best system on earth done by one of the 2 or 3 best companies. There are only a few companies can do this. This is not. But if you would have seen what this other group did, they were going crazy. They had, I heard 3,000 contractors. And then when it all came together, guess what? It didn't work. It's a disaster. So we're going to have in a pretty short period of time, so it'll take us about 2 years to build it. And we'll have a contract given out probably over the next couple of months. We have some great bidders, some great companies that want to do the job. You're going to have great air traffic control.
Just to make one last point on this. So the last administration signed a contract with an American company to fix the copper to fiber, and that contract was a 15-year contract. The system is failing today, but that's how idiotic and incompetent the last administration was. And under your leadership, we're saying, listen, we don't have time. We don't have 15 years. We don't have 5 years. We have to do it right now. And so the president always talks about on time and on budget. We have embraced that. We are going to be on time and on budget. And by the way, you mentioned a train out in California. Stay tuned for probably give us 5 days and you'll have an answer on what's going to happen with the $4 billion that we potentially have invested on a train that's going to go nowhere. It's going to be $120 billion. They'll never connect San Francisco to LA. Again, the last administration wasted so much money on projects that never work. If you're going to have high-speed rail, you're going to invest billions. We should actually have high-speed rail in America, not boondoggles that fund political friends and allies and family
They have
members.
from San Francisco, inside of San Francisco to inside of Los Angeles. Should have never been built because airplanes do it better. And you could drive it. You could drive it. No problem with driving it. The roads aren't even crowded. So they were going to do this. Somebody's idea. Somebody got paid off a lot of money and they started it. It was going to cost a very small amount of money. And it ended up costing literally hundreds of times what the original. And now what they did is they said, well, going into the city is too big a deal. So we'll leave it 25 miles short of the city. So now they're leaving it. They're not going to finish it, really. It's not the same project. So now they're leaving it outside of San Francisco and outside, short of each. They just want to get it done. And I've never seen cost overruns. You know, if you have a cost overrun of 10%, you should be ashamed of yourself. 20%, you should not do any more jobs. This is a cost overrun of 2,000%, something like that. It's unlimited, and it's not finished. And maybe it will never get finished. And I told Sean, look at it from every standpoint, but we don't want to, we have federal money going into that, and it's like throwing it out the window. So whatever you can do to stop it.
$15 billion and not one track has been laid. $15 billion and we're 16 years into the project, not one track.
Mr. President,
on New York, you're the most prominent Republican in the country from the city. What do you want to
anywhere else?
Well,
I don't want to be a wise guy. Perhaps I got maybe Marco.
How do you want Republican voters in the city to vote in the upcoming mayoral election? Should they vote for Eric Adams? Should they vote for Sliwa? Should they pick someone else?
Look, number one, you have a communist running, and you shouldn't vote for him. He's a disaster. He's leading. he's got the Democrat nomination because that shows you where the Democrats have gone. He actually wants to take over the grocery stores of John Catsimatidis, who's a great guy, a rich guy, grocer, does a good job, wants to take over. He actually called me the other day. He's concerned his stores are going to be taken from him and they won't be run like John runs them. Believe me, he runs a good operation. But he actually said he wants to run his own grocery stores. No, this is a man who's not very capable, in my opinion, other than he's got a good line of bullshit. And he's convinced them to go with him. Now, as you know, Cuomo, who does have capability, is running, but he got knocked out. And now they're running as you have Eric Adams, the current mayor, you have Cuomo, and you have Curtis Lewa. And Curtis runs every 4 years. He seems to be a fixture on the running scale. But you know, it's I'm not getting involved. But I can tell you this: I used to say we will not ever be a socialist country, right? Well, I'll say it again: we're not going to have. If a communist gets elected to run New York, it can never be the same. But we have tremendous power at the White House to run places when we have to. We could run D.C. I mean, we're looking at D.C. We don't want crime in D.C. We want the city to run well. Susie Wiles is working very closely with the mayor, and they're doing all right. I mean, in the sense that we would run it so good, it would be run so proper. We get the best person to run it, and the crime would be down to a minimal, would be much less. And, you know, we're thinking about doing it. To be honest with you, we want a capital that's run flawlessly, and it wouldn't be hard for us to do it. And we've had a good relationship with the mayor, and we're testing it to see if it works. But New York City will run properly. We're going to bring New York back. I love New York. You know, I loved New York for a long time. Then we had a bunch of crooked people in there. You have an attorney general who's a total stone cold crook, New York State, Letitia James, a total crook. All they do is want to go after political opponents. They do what's ever expeditious for them. She's the one that took out Cuomo because she wanted to run for governor, and then she ended up getting 1% of the vote. She polled at 1%. She dropped out, went back to attorney general. You have a lot of crooked things going on in New York. We're going to straighten out New York. Maybe we're going to have to straighten it out from Washington. But when I see a communist who has actually gotten a Democrat, pretty much gotten the Democrat nomination, they also went to that new form of voting, which is a beauty. You go in there in third place, you come out in first. That's that form of voting that they have gone to. You know what I'm talking about. It's not too good. We're going to do something for New York. I can't tell you what yet, but we're going to make New York great again. Also, we're going to make it great again with the country. What we've done in this country in the last 6 months, nobody has ever seen it. And I told the story, the King of Saudi Arabia, I was over there. They gave us $5.1 trillion between Saudi Arabia and UAE, Qatar. 3 stops, $5.1 trillion coming into our country as an investment, biggest investment ever made. And it's all going to good stuff. I mean, all real big, good stuff. Energy projects, big things. But they all 3 told me essentially the same thing. We thought your country was dead, and now you've got the hottest country in the world. We're right now riding the hottest country. We all, and you can all be proud of it. We're in the hottest country. This is the hottest country in the world. There's nobody close. Made hotter by some great pilots and great machines that nobody else has. Those great, big, beautiful machines, they rode those machines right into the toughest territory. And nobody knew what the hell happened. And then they hit their targets perfectly. And it was complete and total obliteration. And that's why that war ended, Steve. They told me that's why the war ended. The war ended when they saw that, it was over. And we're very proud of it. But we have the hottest country in the world right now, from a country that was close to dead. And if I didn't win, if you would have had the other person win, we all know who she is. Whether it was she or Biden, they're the same. He may have been more competent than her, and that's hard to believe, right? But if you had that ideology in, I don't believe you would have had a country anymore. I think you would have had a country that was broken up. But we had a dead country. Now we have the hottest country in the world, and everybody knows it, and everybody said it. Mr. Vice President, do you have anything to say?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that I'm very proud of the whole team. I think everybody has worked together. You see Pete and Marco and Steve working on some of the diplomacy, Christy and Pam working on the border. We just have a really, really solid team, and we've done a lot of good work. And in particular, I want to congratulate the White House staff led by the president on getting the One Big Beautiful Bill passed. Yeah. I was personally skeptical. Sorry, I never told you this, but I was skeptical we'd be able to get that thing done by July 4th. We did it because we worked together and we worked very well. So it's an honor to be a part of it, but I'm really proud of you guys for doing a great job.
The beautiful thing about it, it had something for everyone.
That's right.
Most people said it had to be broken into 7 bills. It's so big. The problem was that some of those 7 have nothing for anyone, but they had to be done for the country. You know, sometimes you have to do things for the country that aren't necessarily popular. We had a couple of them, and that wouldn't have worked. So the One Big Beautiful Bill, many people said it could never be approved. Too big, too everything is too much. But it had something very big and very important for everyone, and it's great for the country. And remember, the Democrats have come up with a false narrative, you know, just whatever. It's just a line that they send to everybody and that they print. I think in the case of this, it's death, death. Everyone's going to die. I heard that. Everyone's going to do just the opposite. Everyone's going to live. What we're doing is saving our country and making it much bigger, better, and stronger than it ever was. I'd like to ask, Marco's been doing such a great job. Do you have anything to say?
Well, it's just going through a list here, Mr. President, and I think the Vice President's pointed out to the great team you have, but and all these achievements that have happened domestically. But you think about it, under your leadership, we prevented and ended a war between India and Pakistan. NATO's now at 5% for the first time ever, the highest numbers ever. A peace deal between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. A 12-day war that ended with an American operation that we're the only country in the world that could have done. Hopefully, pretty soon, a peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia. The entire Middle East and the infrastructure of it has the potential now to change because of Syria and Lebanon, and it hasn't even been 6 months.
True.
It hasn't even been 6 months, so it's a great testament to your leadership in this.
Well, thank you very much, and you've done a fantastic job. Could I just ask Linda? She's involved in so much. She's so talented and so good, and she's working on a couple of little things like Harvard, who was given $5.5 billion over a short period of time. We caught him on that one. That's crazy, but you're working on so much. You want to bring education back to the States. How are you doing?
Well, absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity. I think on the big, beautiful bill, what we saw, you know, was school choice. You know, that's finally on a national basis at the state level, but there are opportunities now for scholarships, more and more of them for kids who are in family schools. It's going to be a big turnaround. I think one of the biggest accomplishments we had over the past week was University of Pennsylvania with the Title IX ruling that Leah Thomas was stripped of her title, Riley Gaines and Paula Scanlon and other women who have stood, you know, so strong against men and women's sports. And when you put out the the executive order, I mean, that just solidified it and gave them the opportunity. So those are a couple of really, really big wins, and thank you for that opportunity.
And how are you doing with Columbia and Harvard?
We're negotiating hard. I think we're getting close to having that happen. It's not wrapped up as fast as I wanted to, but we're getting there.
Okay, good. And you've done a fantastic job. Thank you very much.
It's been a good team.
Yep. You have a great team.
Around this table, a lot of people have helped with that.
That's right. Thank you very much. Maybe just in closing, you know, we spent a lot of time, effort, very little money on this room. This is called the Cabinet Room. It's been here for a long time. And it had some pictures that were not many of them and not very good ones. And I actually spent time in the vaults. The vaults are where we have a lot of great pictures and artwork. And I picked it all myself. I'm very proud of it. That's Andrew Jackson, great Andrew Jackson. That's a gentleman named, and we call him President Polk. He was sort of a real estate guy. He was, people don't realize he was he was a one-termer, but he was a very good president. But and I'm not sure I should be doing this, he actually gave us the state of California. He was the one. He was the one. So I'm not sure. Maybe he won't be there for long. But if you notice, the frame is the exact same size almost as the other one is Andrew Jackson. So that was a part of the reason too, I have to be honest. But Polk was actually a very good president who's got the same frame that I needed, okay? And up here you have the original George Washington right behind the light. And then you have Dwight Eisenhower, who was a very underrated president. He built the interstate system, and he was the toughest president, I guess, until we came along. But I don't mind giving up that crown because I don't want to be too tough on it, but we want to be humane. But he was the toughest president on immigration. He was very strong at the borders, very, very strong. And sometimes you can be too strong. He was strong at the borders, and during a certain period of time, they were so strong that almost every farmer in California went bankrupt. And we have to remember that. We have to work together, and we have to remember that. But he was a very good president, and a very good general, and a very good president. And I thought he deserved a position somewhere on this floor. And then you have, this is very exciting to me, he was not a Republican, to put it mildly, but he was, he was a four-termer. He was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And if you notice, there were a lot of ramps outside. We have ramp, people say it's an unusual place for a ramp. It was because of him. He was wheelchair bound, but he was an amazing man. It's an amazing portrait. And we used to have him in the room, a different portrait, and it was a terrible portrait. It was almost like it was done by a child. And I used to say, I can't believe that he would have approved of that portrait of himself. And I was in the vaults and looking at things. I said, what's that? And we have some great curators here. We have 6 curators at the White House. They have 2 for paintings. They have them for furniture. They have them for different things. I guess cost is no object. Okay, cost is, maybe I'd have 1, but that's all right. But we have 6, and they're very talented, though. And he said, that's a picture of FDR. I said, really? Let me see it. They took off the wrappings, very well preserved. And I said, that's the picture they've been looking for years. That was the picture of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And I said, oh, wow. And likewise, that fit, see frame-wise, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work if you have, I want to be nice, but it doesn't work if you have a big frame, a little frame, but it's like perfection. I'm a perfectionist. The mirror was down in the vaults also. I said, where is this from? And it's a very old, very storied mirror, beautiful. We put that up. And then over there is Honest Abe Lincoln. And that picture was in his bedroom. And we thought that this would be a very important place because this is where wars are ended. I'm not going to say wars are declared. I'm going to say wars are ended, okay? We'll be positive. And that's the picture of Abe Lincoln from his bedroom, sat in the bedroom for many, many years. That was his favorite picture of himself. And the Lincoln bedroom's very famous. You remember when Bill Clinton had it and he rented it out to people. Okay. We don't do that. But it's an incredible room. And we took that picture from his bedroom. That's Abe Lincoln. And then over here you have John Adams, and it's they were the first occupants of the White House, 1800. And John Quincy Adams, Mrs. Adams, they were the first occupants. So we have them looking at each other, and in between their stare is Abraham Lincoln trying to make peace. And that picture was in a room that I have that was not important, like the cabinet. I gave it up. I said, I have to give it up because that's one of the greatest pictures of the White House. The White House is tremendous art. And the Oval Office, when we're there, we'll go over that. That's really been something. Then we got the drapes, so we got the whole thing. We got new drapes. We got new, wasn't a big expense, very, very small. And we took some of the chinaware and silverware and trophyware, they call it, from the vaults, and we had it cleaned up, hadn't been shined up in 100 years. Some of this has sat in the vaults for over 100 years, amazing. Over 100 years. Many of the pictures that were put up in the Oval Office as an example, those two as an example. So he was president. They moved in 1800. and he won the election, I believe, in November of 1800, John Quincy Adams. And we thought that would be he was considered to be a good president, and he was the first occupant of the White House, so it sort of made sense. And I love the frame of those pictures. Look at those frames. You know, I'm a frame person. Sometimes I like frames more than I like the pictures. And we have the flags of the Marines, and Space Force now has its own flag. I'm very proud of Space Force, but the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, the whole thing. And Coast Guard is right there. You never forget the Coast Guard. They do a great job. So we have the flags throughout the office. And it's really become quite a beautiful place. I don't want to tell this, Marco pointed it out. I was going to leave the clock. So as president, you have the power. If I go into the State Department or Department of Commerce or Treasury, if I see anything that I like, I'm allowed to take it. Do you believe this? So I'm in Marco's. I see this gorgeous clock, grandfather clock, and there it is. I said, Marco. He didn't know about it. I had to read him the rule and regulation. I said, Marco, I love this clock. Look at it. It's beautiful. He said, what clock? I said, the clock that's in the other room is incredible, and nobody gets to see it there. Marco, I tried to talk him into it first, and it sort of worked, and then I had to use a little more. I said, I'd love to take that clock out and put it in the cabinet room. He said, no, are you serious? I said, Marco, I have the right to do it, Marco. And he said, all right, what the hell? So that's his contribution to the cabinet room. But it's, by the way, it's an incredible clock. And, you know, it's an important room. So you may see it again. Maybe we'll move it back sometime. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. But it really is great. Here we put on, you know, these lamps have been very important, actually. Whether people love them or not, but if you see pictures like Pearl Harbor and Tora Tora Tora, you see movies about the White House where wars are being discussed. Oftentimes they'll show those lamps or something like those lamps, something that looks like them, probably not the reals, because I don't think they were allowed to. This is a very important room. This is a sacred room. And I don't think they made movies from here. You never know what they do. But they were missing medallions. See the medallions on top? They had a chain going into the ceiling. And I said, you can't do that. You have to have a medallion. They said, what's a medallion? I said, I'll show you. And we got some beautiful medallions. And you see them. They were put up there. Makes the lamps look better. So we did these changes. And, you know, when you think of it, the cost was almost nothing. We also painted the room a nice color, beige color. And it's been really something. The only question is, will I gold leaf the corners? You could maybe tell me my cabinet could take a vote. You see the top line moldings, and the only question is, do you gold leaf it? Because you can't paint it. If you paint it, it won't look good because they've never found a paint that looks like gold. You see that in the Oval Office. They've tried for years and years. Somebody could become very wealthy, but they've never found a paint that looks like gold. So painting it is easy, but it won't look right. And the question is whether or not we should gold leaf it. Linda, do you have an opinion?
I gold leaf it.
You like it the way?
No, I gold leaf it.
You'd gold leaf it?
Yeah.
Who would gold leaf it? Could I raise you? How about, would you gold leaf it?
I was going to ask about McKinley. One of their favorite presidents.
Well, McKinley was a great president who never got credit. In fact, they changed the name of Mount McKinley, and I changed it back because he should have been, the people of Ohio he was the governor of Ohio. The people of Ohio were very happy when I did that. I heard they were very insulted. They took the name of Mount McKinley off. That was done by Obama a little while ago, and I had to change it back. I changed it back. He actually was a great president. He was a president. He was the tariff, the most, I guess, since me. I think I'm going to outdo him, but he was a tariff president. He believed that other countries should pay for the privilege of coming into our country and taking our jobs and taking our treasure. That's the way he explained it. They took our jobs and they took our treasure, and for that they should pay. And he made them pay, and he built a tremendous fortune. In fact, in 1887, they had the Great Tariff Committee was set up in 1887 because our country had so much money, we didn't know what to do with it. And they set up a committee of, as they called them, elites, a term that we have to change, because I think a lot of the people that are elites aren't elite. I think the people that aren't elite are elite. So we're going to have to maybe switch that around somehow. But they had a committee that was set up to spend the money, because it was such a large amount of money at that time. It was nobody had seen anything like it. And it all came in from tariffs, and people didn't pay tax. There was no income tax system. I told you that came back in 1913. That came back and lived well for a while. And then you had the Great Depression. And then later, they tried to bring back tariffs, but the whole thing was, this was after the Depression. That was one of the great misconceptions, is people like to say, oh, but it was during the, no, the country had a Great Depression. And then after the Depression, long after it started, they brought back tariffs to see if they could save it. But it took them really 25 years. When you say about 25 years to get out of the Great Depression, a lot of people don't understand that. But I thought it would be interesting for you to get a little view of this room. This is a very important room, very powerful room, great room. And we've done similar, but even beyond this, in the Oval Office. We brought back pictures of some of the great presidents. Many of them were in the vaults for over 100 years. Originals all, beautiful, beautiful things. And rather than sitting in a vault downstairs for 128 years, I thought we should display that, and we did that, I think, in a really good way. We've gotten very high marks, but it's interesting. People walk into that room and they look around the room. They don't even want to talk to me. They could look at it for hours. It's funny, when people come into the Oval Office, it's such an incredible, it's a sacred place. When people come into the Oval, from the biggest people in the world, presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, one case at least, queens, and the biggest business people in the world, they walk into that office, and they always say, there's no place like this in the whole world in terms of the power. And I mean, it's beautiful and all, but there are other beautiful offices. You have businessmen that have offices that are, full floors of office buildings, floor to ceiling glass, and they walk in there and they say, there's no place like this anywhere in the world. There's no place. And, it's what it represents, maybe more than the physicality of the room itself. So it's an honor to have you all, media. It's an honor to have you. I just want to say we have a fantastic cabinet. Every one of them is a star in my book. And if they're not, I'll let you know about it. I'll throw them to the wolves. I'll throw them to the wolves in 2 seconds, because our country comes first, right? But I just want to thank you all for being here. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. 6 months, and we've had a tremendous 2 weeks.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's not restarting. Yeah, that's just a loop there. Okay, officially done. That was another hour. That was another 90 minutes from the cabinet room, and obviously there's only one part of that entire cabinet meeting that is getting massive play, and it's going over rough right now. A lot to say on this, and we've been organizing our thoughts and are going to be recording shortly. But wow, it just seems like there's an energy shift. There's a dynamic energy shift that is it just seems to be inharmonious with the base and out of tune, which is very peculiar at this moment, because I've never seen a White House really sharper with understanding sort of the internet and the online ecosystem. And there's something that's inharmonious. I have faith that they're going to figure it out, because here's the one thing I can say, and we'll say it, and then we got to go jump into recordings. We have a slam pack day here in the studio. It's not going away. I hate to be the one to break the news to anyone inside of the administration or anybody who wishes for this to just disappear, but it's not going away. The questions about Epstein, if anything, have you ever heard of the Streisand effect? Saying, like, don't look at this, don't look. Like, that makes people look even more. And it makes people more ravenous to figure out what's actually going on. Especially when we got nothing. as we have compared this time and time again to the release of the JFK files, they gave hundreds of thousands of files. And I know there are millions, but they dropped hundreds of thousands of files. People were able to tear through them, and you release the pressure a little bit. Instead of learning from that, just saying, shut up. We got you. We got it, bro. We looked into it, bro, and there's nothing. Just move along. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it's not the atomization and destruction of these federal bureaucracies have been happening for decades. But the Trump administration inherited the zero trust. And in order to restore that, you need to begin to establish trust. And the way you do that is declass, transparency, taking it seriously, showing people why and how you came to your conclusion. In school, in day school, it'd be called showing your work. Here's your mathematical problem. How did you come to your result? Show me your work. That is the level of transparency that will be required to start to take the pressure release valve down. But unfortunately, just saying, we looked into it, bro, and just move along. Like that increases the pressure. It's going to have the opposite effect. It's called the Streisand effect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I can't think of a better day for a Bible verse than this. Whew, man, what a show. Goodness gracious, we cooked. From Psalms 140. Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Preserve me from violent men who plan evil things in their hearts, and they continually gather together for war. What a good one here. Ladies and gentlemen, the signs of Satan: steal, kill, destroy. The marks of Satan: steal, kill, and destroy. From Christ himself, he describes the merits of Satan, talking about gathering together for war. It's why we're so anti-war on this channel. It's why we're so anti-globalism on this channel. Violent men who plan evil things in their hearts, deliver me from them. Deliver me from these evil men. And what are the signs of evil? They're trying to steal from you. They're not trying to kill you and destroy you. And they do that to other people. They sex traffic. These are the signs of evil men. They'll steal your nation if they can. And they'll kill you. And so we've seen a lot of that. Fight evil and fight it with us on this program, please. Fight evil. Fight it with us on this program. By joining us and by watching along, you assist in a show that is not going to pull any punches. We've been asking these questions. We've gone viral. We've been asking these questions for years. And half my feed are like really old clips of Kash Patel, Bongino on the program, right? People on the program talking about this. And we're proud of that work, quite frankly. We're proud to have had a long history of wanting to expose this. And I'll say it in finality here. It's not like a little question if your nation is protecting elite internationalist pederast rings. And if those people can control society so effortlessly that they can get killed in prison and get away with it, escape prison and get away with it, I don't know what the hell happened with Jeffrey Epstein. What I know is that we're not being told the truth. And that's not a little question. The Bible verse from Psalm says God must deliver us from evil people. You don't want to be paying taxes to people who protect or to elite pederast rings themselves. You don't want that. And I don't want that. And we're going to fight against that. But like, don't you understand? Like saying like, shut up and move along and don't ask any questions, that like makes people confused and concerned. In fact, that might be the result. So it just, again, it's important to understand it's our obligation to fight for light and against darkness. And that's what we shall do on this program. God bless you. In the end, we win. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
You're dead. You crazy son of a you're dead.
Show where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.